Chapter 4801. Emperor Shi Dragon and Qing Tian Calamity Dragon sat at the highest point of the spectator stand, in the center of the Dragon God Clan spectator stand. Below them were the students of the 4 Dragon Martial Academies. Many students were actually here to watch the battle and were not qualified to fight at all. It was not that they did not meet the requirements, but that they were too weak. Among the 4 Dragon Martial Academies, there were only about 90 students below Mentor Dragon Emperor who could reach the 4th level of Dragon Emperor. These were all rising in recent years, and they were strong competitors for the students of the Divine Center District. But there were more than 900 students from the 4 Dragon Martial Academies who were qualified to come to the spectator stand, and they were all students who had reached at least the 5th level of Dragon King. Those who had not reached this level did not need to come to watch the battle because it was too far away from them. Kong Xinmu did not even let Zhang Liuxue, Shi Weiying, and Shi Yutong come, and they planned to stay in the Yen Dragon Emperor to train the members of the Devouring Dragon Group. This made Kong Xinmu feel that it was a pity, but after thinking about it, it was indeed useless for the 3 girls to come to watch the arena battle. If they left, there would be no one to watch the Devouring Dragon Group, and that would not be good. So this was the only way. On the side of Donghuang Yongwu College, Kong Xinmu saw Qin Xiaoye with Luo Han, Su Qin, and Liang Luo, the son of the Dragon Emperor of Great Liang. They were still in the same team, fighting on the battlefield and improving themselves. Qin Xiaoye was still at the 4th level of Dragon Emperor. She did not break through to the 5th level of Dragon Emperor, because she also wanted to participate in this arena battle. Once she broke through to the 5th level of Dragon Emperor, she could not participate in the arena battle. Was she supposed to participate in the arena battle of the Dragon Emperor mentors? Except for Kong Xinmu, no one could be so crazy. Zhu Wudi also appeared on the field. Lin Yuji, Qin Fengyu, and Lu Hua were still on the chaotic battlefield. He did not know how they were doing, but they should be safe. Although Zhou Xiaofeng had sent them to the chaotic battlefield outside, he would not let them die. They were most likely assigned to some stronghold to manage some things. Kong Xinmu looked around and saw many Dragon Emperor mentors appearing on the spectator stand. Tan Shouzhua and Chu Yueqiang also appeared. When they arrived at the scene, they first looked for Jiang Shenwu's position. Then, they respectively nodded at Jiang Shenwu, giving him a friendly look. After all, Kong Xinmu's return this time had greatly increased their strength. The Heaven-level Saint spiritual dragon weapon given to them had greatly increased their combat power. They were already strong existences on the 9th level of Dragon Emperor, almost becoming Super Shenron. This time, of course, they wanted to show off their skills in the arena battle of the Dragon Emperor mentors. Be it Tan Shouzhua or Chu Yueqiang, their strength was not much weaker than Shangguan Dai Er's. It could be said that Chu Yueqiang and Tan Shouzhua from Donghuang Yongwu College had the best chance of entering the top 10 of the arena battle. Of course, it was just the best chance. Maybe they would not even enter the top 10. This time, there were also many Dragon Emperor powerhouses from the Dragon Emperor Kingdom who wanted to participate in the arena battle. These were all Dragon Emperor powerhouses from the Dragon Emperor Kingdom. Many of them had reached the peak of the 4th level of Dragon Emperor, and they also planned to participate in the arena battle. Their combat power was generally not too high, but they wanted to take the opportunity to hone themselves and feel the combat power of other races. It was difficult for them to feel it personally just by watching, so the main thing was to go on the stage and fight with the cultivators from other races. Anyway, in theory, the arena battle was a battle to learn from each other. If you could not win, you could just admit defeat. The other party would not chase after you. There were about 90 Dragon Emperor powerhouses. To be honest, due to the recent increase in cultivation resources in the Dragon Martial Continent, many Dragon Emperor level powerhouses had improved. Their cultivation had also broken through to the peak of the 4th level of Dragon Emperor. For example, Dragon Emperor Yen, if it was not for Kong Xinmu helping him break through the bottleneck, he would now only be at the peak of the 4th level of Dragon Emperor. Therefore, there were a lot of Dragon Emperor powerhouses at this stage. It was normal for there to be close to 100 of them. In addition to these, there were the Dragon Martial Artists from the Hidden Dragon Martial Artist family. Those who were still at the 4th level of Dragon Emperor were basically the younger generation. However, the Hidden Dragon Martial Artist family's origin dragon martial technique was still very strong. They also had a lot of Holy Spirit dragon weapons. Recently, they had participated in the chaotic battle with other races. Those who could survive would definitely get a lot of rewards, so their combat power was not weak. There were about 50 participants from the Hidden Dragon Martial Artist family. In total, there were about 250 people on the side of the dragon gods. This number was not small, but it was not large either. Kong Shinmu sat down next to Yu Yaji and then looked at the void in the distance. In the void in the other 9 directions were the spectator seats of the other 9 races. It could be seen that the spectator seats of the 9 races were densely packed with at least a few hundred people. There were as few as 700 or 800 people, and as many as more than 1,000 people. It should be known that the 9 races were not the home ground. They basically came to the Dragon Martial Continent to participate in the arena battles. Even if a small half of them were going to participate in the arena battles of the Dragon Emperor Mentor level, the remaining half would participate in the arena battles of the 4th level of Emperor level and below. There were at least 400 or 500 people. It could be said that there were twice as many people as in the Dragon Martial Continent. However, this did not mean that the dragon gods were too weak. It was because this time, only the native dragon martial artists of the Dragon Martial Continent were participating. If the conditions were magnified to the entire Dragon God clan, there were thousands of disciples of the 5 Extremes mysterious Ice Holy Land who could participate in this arena battle, and their strength was also very strong. This arena battle was actually a benefit for the Dragon Martial Continent. If someone from the Dragon Martial Continent could rise, even if it was just a random ranking, it would bring great benefits. The ranking of this arena battle was discussed behind the scenes by the Supreme Big Shots, and it also represented the distribution of benefits in many aspects, so it could be said to be of great importance. There are so many people from other races. Jiang Shenwu really did not expect that the number of participants from the other races would be more than double that of the Dragon Martial Warriors. If the Dragon Martial Continent's Dragon Martial Warriors wanted to obtain a ranking in the arena battle, the chances of them obtaining a ranking would be much smaller. After all, the current dragon martial artists of the Dragon Martial Continent really did not have any advantages compared to the practitioners of those races. Perhaps only Kong Shinmu had the combat power to crush the people at this stage. The others, including Xiao Bai, Ran Ran, Xiao Yuhua, Liang Xiao, and the others, might not necessarily have the combat power to crush the people at this stage. It was very likely that they would be defeated by the geniuses of other races. Although the arena battle was a competition, it was extremely cruel. Chapter 4802. A challenge like this was not just a test of one-on-one combat strength. More importantly, it was a test of endurance. To stand in the arena and fight all the time, it required a lot of endurance. It was very likely that some practitioners had strong explosive power, but their endurance was weak. In that case, it was impossible for them to stay in the arena. They could only go up and defeat their opponents before the end of the battle. But it was impossible for them to go up and fight until the end of the battle, because if they wanted to compete for the next battle, they had to rely on their own speed. After the end of the battle, as long as other opponents flew over the arena, the next round of battle would immediately start. Therefore, this kind of arena battle was very intense. Even if one wanted to go on stage at the last moment to save as much energy as possible, it was possible that they would face great competition. It was possible that they would miss the challenge time because of the competition and miss the top 16. As long as the practitioners were still standing in the arena, they could get some rewards. The higher their ranking in the final knockout round, the more rewards they would get. As more and more people came, the supreme masters of the 10 clans all rose to the sky and communicated with each other. Among the clans, the supreme masters of their respective clans would announce the start of the battle. For this kind of joint action between clans, there would be no opening speech. The key was that they couldn't choose someone to announce it. Who would announce it? The relationship between clans was not so good. The supreme masters of the dragon gods could not order the ordinary practitioners of other clans. Therefore, there was no need to announce the opening speech. On the side of the dragon gods, as the supreme masters of the 10 clans finished communicating with each other, the dragon god Calamity announced the start of the battle. With the order of the Blue Sky Tribulation Dragon, the arena battle officially began. It could be seen that from the spectator seats of the 10 clans, many practitioners flew out almost at the same time. These were basically young geniuses at the 4th level of the imperial stage, and they could not be more than 50 years old. All of them quickly flew toward the arenas. On the way, they broke out their fastest speed, so they activated all the power of their inherited bloodline. This time, it could be said that 100 flowers were blooming. Kong Shinmu could clearly see that around the 16 arenas in front of him, many practitioners appeared at the same time. There was also a water god phantom that was condensed behind him, moving through the void at the fastest speed possible, bringing with it a long river of light blue water attribute energy. Some of them transformed into demon gods and landed on the arena in a violent manner, becoming the first arena lord. Some transformed into fire phoenixes, which were cultivators of the ancient Phoenix clan. They flew directly into one of the 16 arenas. It could be said that the 9 clans were very active, and they were the fastest. On the other hand, the dragon gods were more conservative. After all, they were all native dragon warriors of the dragon martial continent. They were not particularly familiar with the experts of the other clans, so there was no need to go to the arena to seek death. Although many dragon martial artists of the dragon martial continent have recently interacted with other races, and have even killed many members of other races, their contact time is still short. Basically, they have only interacted with 2 or 3 of the races. Under such circumstances, they needed to observe carefully. They had to gain some understanding of the fighting style of a race that they were unfamiliar with. This was also a safer method. However, Kong Shinmu was not one of them. At the beginning of this arena battle, Kong Shinmu directly transformed into a black dragon, traveled through the void by means of the wind shadow flowing cloud flash, and directly landed on the nearest arena. Kong Shinmu intended to defend the arena. Amazing, Kong Shinmu directly flew up, so fast. If you want to grab the position of the first arena lord, you have to be fast enough. We can't do it. Since we can't grab the position of the first arena lord, let's observe the situation first. On the 16 arenas, they were quickly occupied. Immediately after, the other 16 people rushed into the various arenas. Then, each arena was separated by a supreme level of power. The first arena battle began. Anyway, as long as there were more than 2 people on each arena, there would be supreme power to open the isolation, marking the beginning of the arena battle. Kong Shinmu went on the arena, but Xiao Bai, Liang Xiao, Xiao Yuhua, and Ran Ran did not act rashly. They wanted to get a ranking this time, so they could not act recklessly. They had to first observe the opponents on each arena. In this kind of arena battle, there was basically a conventional rule that people of one's own race would not challenge practitioners of another race. For example, it was impossible for the Dragon God clan to challenge the dragon warriors of other dragon martial continent. They had to find practitioners of other races to fight and strive to defeat all the practitioners of other races. The first batch of people who had the confidence to occupy the arena were definitely very confident in their own strength. So seeing that they came so quickly, the others were not too anxious. When the supreme protective barrier of each arena was opened, some of the practitioners who were flying towards the arenas were blocked in the void outside. They could only wait for the arena battles to end, and the supreme protection barrier would open again to let them in. Whoever entered first would be qualified for the next challenge. Kong Shinmu went straight to the arena, not thinking too much. In the arena, he could not see the situation in the spectator stands clearly. He only knew that he would be facing an endless stream of opponents, and that many of his opponents had already lined up outside the supreme protective barrier of his arena. That's right, the supreme protection barrier on Kong Shinmu's arena had also opened. The person who appeared in front of him was a 4th-level Emperor Stage cultivator from the Void Human tribe. This 4th-level Emperor Stage cultivator's aura was very obscure, and he did not look like a strong cultivator. However, Kong Shinmu's keen senses told him that this Void Human tribe cultivator was definitely not weak. The Void God totem on the other party's back immediately condensed. Then, a heaven-level Void Energy God weapon appeared around him, circling around him. Incomparably terrifying Void Energy condensed on the Void Energy weapon, and then a tyrannical Void God martial technique erupted. A wave of Void Energy condensed like a long river, sweeping towards Kong Shinmu at an extremely fast speed. Its power looked extremely terrifying, and this made Kong Shinmu think of the strongest attack at Xiao Bai's level. About the same, the opponent's strength was about the same as the current Xiao Bai. Chapter 4803. Kong Shinmu was only slightly surprised to see this young virtual human tribe powerhouse rushing towards him, but he didn't take it to heart. In fact, it was almost impossible for a level 4 martial emperor to reach Kong Shinmu's level of strength, unless it was one of the other 9 great tribes. Such a powerhouse would have a battle weapon of the same level as him, and they would use brilliance on the battle weapon of the same level. Moreover, the martial techniques they cultivated would be top-notch. Basically, only such an opponent could possibly defeat Kong Shinmu. However, this young virtual human tribe powerhouse was obviously just an ordinary young powerhouse. His opponent's empty god totem appeared and enveloped his robed body. The empty god totem was almost 3 kilometers tall, and terrifying void energy transformed into waves of ripples that condensed into a long river that swept towards Kong Shinmu and swept across the arena. Kong Shinmu had already transformed into his black dragon form. Unless he encountered a top-notch level 4 martial emperor, Kong Shinmu didn't intend to use his Phantom Ghost Book and Great Compassion Dragon Seal in an arena battle of this level. So, at this moment, he directly unleashed the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body Technique's nimble form, and then his Divine Dragon form instantly vanished from the arena, and he shuttled through the void. Kong Shinmu, who was shuttling through the void, instantly avoided the direction of his opponent's void ripples, and then he appeared behind the virtual human tribe powerhouse. Every battle in the arena only lasted for 30 minutes at most. However, 30 minutes was more than enough for Kong Shinmu to defeat an opponent of this level. Kong Shinmu shuttled through the void and appeared behind his opponent. His opponent reacted extremely quickly, and he immediately sensed Kong Shinmu's movements. Then, he turned around and unleashed a wave of void energy towards Kong Shinmu. The Void God martial technique cultivated by this virtual human tribe powerhouse was relatively destructive, but it was comparatively clumsy. The void energy ripples were like terrifying waves that swept towards Kong Shinmu. However, Kong Shinmu suddenly shuttled through the void again, and his divine dragon form appeared above his opponent's head. This scene finally caused the young virtual human tribe powerhouse's expression to turn slightly unsightly. He hadn't expected Kong Shinmu to be able to shuttle through the void repeatedly. Generally speaking, this required a cultivator's comprehension of void energy to reach an extremely high level. Even the young virtual human tribe powerhouse himself couldn't accomplish this. However, Kong Shinmu had actually done it twice in a row. This showed that Kong Shinmu's comprehension of void energy had surpassed his. In fact, Kong Shinmu's comprehension of void energy was probably inferior to this young virtual human tribe powerhouse. But the key was that Kong Shinmu had cultivated the sunset streak, which gave Kong Shinmu had greater control of its had. In comparison, this young virtual human tribe powerhouse was clearly not proficient in this aspect. Kong Shinmu appeared above his opponent's head, and the light of 7 Hui dragon bursts condensed. Then, the power of the 7 Hui dragon bursts swept towards his opponent. The power of 7 ultimate Hui dragon bursts exploded in front of his opponent with a loud bang. If it were Xiao Bai and the others, they would have to use all their strength to block such a terrifying attack. However, the virtual god totem on the young virtual human tribe powerhouse's body suddenly lit up. This burst of light was translucent, and it contained extremely dense void energy. Together, it gathered to form a void disk. Kong Shinmu's 7 Hui dragon bursts all bombarded this void disk, and all the power that erupted was actually absorbed by the void disk. Kong Shinmu's expression changed. His attack did not have any effect on this young virtual human tribe powerhouse. His opponent actually used a strange virtual human tribe martial technique to divert his attack away. This also meant that Kong Shinmu's attack was useless. In this case, he could only use a more primitive method to deal with his opponent. Devouring power. Kong Shinmu did not panic at all. Seeing that his opponent's void disk had actually diverted his attack away, he immediately tore through the void and arrived in front of the 2 waves of void energy that his opponent had just released. The main thing was that his devouring power erupted and began to devour these waves of void energy. The terrifying devouring power allowed Kong Shinmu to quickly devour these void energy, and at this moment, his resistance against void energy rapidly increased. At the same time, Kong Shinmu also used the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body Technique to defend himself. Since he could not use brute force to deal with his opponent, he would directly defend himself. He would first resist his opponent's attacks, so that no attacks from his opponent could pose any threat to Kong Shinmu. This way, Kong Shinmu would be invincible. First, he would be invincible and create a favorable situation for himself. Then, Kong Shinmu wanted to try out the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire's techniques. At this moment, the young virtual human tribe powerhouse clearly reacted. He followed Kong Shinmu's movements and continuously released void energy waves at Kong Shinmu. The void energy ripple attack that Jiang Shenwu cultivated was an extremely powerful technique for him. Moreover, Jiang Shenwu discovered that the speed at which Jiang Shenwu executed the ripple attack was getting faster and faster. It was obvious that this Void God Realm martial technique would become faster and faster as it was executed. This way, the battlefield would soon be filled with the void energy waves. No matter how fast Kong Shinmu dodged, he would be directly hit by the void energy waves. When that happened, the young virtual human tribe powerhouse felt that his victory was imminent. After all, although this attack was slow, it was extremely powerful. Most importantly, if he used it enough times, he would be able to reach the state where he could use this move with just a raise of his hand. This was the effect of this Void God Realm martial technique. It had an immersive effect of the void energy. This allowed him to use any Void God Realm martial technique at a terrifying speed. In the battlefield, the void energy waves continued to explode and bombard Kong Shinmu. However, as Kong Shinmu dodged, he continued to absorb the power of the void energy waves with his devouring power. After about 10 attacks from his opponent, Kong Shinmu felt that he could already block 90% of the void energy attacks. His resistance to the void energy had reached the highest level. It's about time. Kong Shinmu's face darkened slightly. He was still a little nervous. He displayed the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body Technique's defensive stance. When his opponent released another wave of void energy waves, he did not dodge for the first time. Instead, he met his opponent's attack head-on. By this time, the entire battlefield was filled with void energy waves. It would be difficult for him to dodge even if he wanted to. Of course, this was slightly easier than the Crystal Arrow stage. However, in a battle of this level, there was no need for Kong Shinmu to play it so dangerously. His resistance to the void energy was already sufficient. Chapter 4804. Many people outside were still paying attention to what was happening on Kong Shinmu's side. This was especially so on the side of the dragon gods. Many people were already paying attention to Kong Shinmu. Moreover, there were now 16 arenas, and this was the arena closest to the dragon god's spectator stand. Naturally, they would pay attention to Kong Shinmu first. Many dragon martial artists were a little disappointed by the battle between Kong Shinmu and the young expert from the Void Human tribe. There was no doubt that Kong Shinmu was already the strongest person on the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor in the Dragon Martial Continent at this stage. However, facing this expert from the Void Human tribe, he seemed to be unable to do anything to his opponent. No one knew if his opponent was too strong, or if Kong Shinmu was not strong enough to crush him. Regardless, now Kong Shinmu finally went berserk and directly rushed towards his opponent's Void Power Wave attack. A terrifying power suddenly exploded in the arena. The expressions of Xiao Bai, Ran, and the others all tensed up. Although they all knew that Kong Shinmu's defense was very strong, the opponent's Void Power Wave was obviously not that easy to resist. The next moment, in the arena, Kong Shinmu's black dragon body finally appeared again. He appeared in the center of the energy vortex that had exploded from the Void Power Wave. Most importantly, Kong Shinmu's divine dragon body did not seem to be injured at all. He had actually used his divine dragon body to directly resist his opponent's attack. At this moment, many people in the spectator stand on the side of the dragon gods let out cheers. The young expert from the Void Human tribe's opponent's seemingly extremely violent attack was actually directly blocked by Kong Shinmu's divine dragon body. This undoubtedly meant that this young expert from the Void Human tribe might not be able to do anything to Kong Shinmu. Seeing this, the young expert from the Void Human tribe's calm eyes also revealed a hint of seriousness. He took out a void energy weapon from his bosom. Kong Shinmu could sense that this specter weapon was a sky rank specter weapon. It was the strongest weapon an emperor rank could wield. However, this phantom weapon had not been illuminated, so its power could not compare to Kong Shinmu's Phantom Ghost Book and Great Compassion Heavenly Dragon Seal. Of course, Kong Shinmu would not underestimate it. Putting aside what kind of strange abilities this phantom weapon might have, even if it was just a pure attack-type battle weapon, it was not something that Jiang Shenwu could withstand with just his physical body alone. Even if it was just a pure attack-type battle weapon, it was still not something that Jiang Shenwu could withstand with just his physical body. In any case, Kong Shinmu cautiously activated the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of Ice and Fire's power. The two powers of Ice and Fire revolved around his black dragon body. Together, they formed a pillar of fire and an ice pillar that swept towards the young expert from the Void Human tribe. Terrifying power erupted in an instant. Apart from the ability to devour, the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of Ice and Fire's power of Ice and Fire was also extremely violent. This could be seen from the 9 layers of engravings on the sacred ring. The power of Ice and Fire erupted in an instant and enveloped the young expert from the Void Human tribe. The young expert from the Void Human tribe took out a specter weapon. It was a super powerful clock-like weapon. Seeing that Kong Shinmu's ice and fire powers were about to attack him, he immediately activated the clock-like specter weapon. Layers of void power barriers immediately formed and blocked the impact of the ice and fire powers outside the void power barriers. This attack seems very strong, but it can't break through my defenses. This young expert from the Void Human clan was obviously not easy to deal with. His expression was cold, and then the void weapon erupted with its most terrifying might. It condensed a wave of void energy ripples at an extremely terrifying speed. After that, these ripples rumbled towards Zhang Shenwu, and it was like a shockwave from the void was heading straight towards him. This was a terrifying attack unleashed by the use of a specter weapon. Its power was at least several times stronger. Kong Shinmu definitely did not dare to take this attack head-on. However, at this moment, he directly faced this shockwave and activated the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of Ice and Fire's ability to devour. When this ability was activated in conjunction with Kong Shinmu's own devouring innate talent, he felt everything around him suddenly become extremely slow. Everything around him slowed down by 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times, 20 times. The power of devouring and the power of the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of Ice and Fire is seamless. It's the strongest power in the world. The ancestral demon god's consciousness exclaimed in awe. His consciousness was located in Kong Shinmu's mind, so he could feel the changes in time around him. Logically speaking, the power of time could only be controlled after reaching an unparalleled level. However, Kong Shinmu was now using the power of devouring and the power of the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of Ice and Fire to slow down time around him. Or rather, he was making himself move faster. This kind of ability to control time was extremely terrifying. The main reason was that the power of devouring had strengthened the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of Ice and Fire's ability to devour time. Otherwise, it would not have been so heaven-defying. Soon, the flow of time around Kong Shinmu was slowed down by 100 times. This speed allowed Kong Shinmu to do a lot of things. Everything in the world was conserved, especially when it came to energy and power. Kong Shinmu's ability to control time didn't come from Kong Shinmu himself. Instead, it came from devouring the time of his opponent. This meant that outside the arena, time was normal. However, inside the arena, it looked like the young virtual human tribe powerhouse was completely motionless. Kong Shinmu, on the other hand, began to cultivate. He began to absorb some rare treasures. These rare treasures contained the spirit chi of heaven and earth. However, they could not restore one's innate talent, so they were not restricted in the arena. More importantly, who would absorb these rare treasures in the arena? That was impossible. And now, Kong Shinmu had done it. He devoured the time of the young virtual human tribe powerhouse. The young virtual human tribe powerhouse stood rooted to the ground. Meanwhile, Kong Shinmu used the time he devoured to quickly absorb these rare treasures to improve himself. This won't do. His opponent is still too weak. The efficiency of the time he devoured isn't high. The ancestral demon god's consciousness sighed and said, 100 times the efficiency of time conversion was not high enough? Kong Shinmu was shocked. Just how high was the requirement for the ancestral demon god's consciousness? Chapter 4805. This efficiency was already very frightening. Even though it was only a short period of time, to Kong Shinmu, it felt like 100 breaths had passed. Kong Shinmu had devoured his opponent's time for 3 breaths in exchange for an extra 300 breaths of time for himself to absorb the spirit chi of the rare treasures and increase his cultivation realm. He was not too far away from the 7th tier of the reincarnation tribulation state now. As long as he could take this step and defeat the reincarnation behemoth 2 more times, his reincarnation power would be even more condensed and powerful. Of course, this was not the time to consider this. Even 300 breaths of time would pass in the blink of an eye. To Kong Shinmu, using this time to cultivate was like trying to put out a cart of firewood with a cup of water. However, at least he gave it a try. This method of stealing his opponent's time and directly cultivating was completely feasible. However, because his opponent's cultivation realm was not very high, the conversion efficiency could only be increased by 100 times at most. When the 300 breaths of time were over, Kong Shinmu took advantage of the last 5 breaths of time to quickly unleash his power. With the most terrifying impact, he unleashed the 9th stage ultimate Pathhorn Dragon Blast. the sevenfold horn dragon blast surged out and exploded in the arena. To Kong Shin-mu, this battle had lasted for a long time. However, to the surrounding people, it had only been 5 breaths of time. The young void human tribe powerhouse suddenly stopped moving. Then, Kong Shin-mu also stopped moving. It seemed like he was rapidly absorbing the spirit chi of the world. Finally, Kong Shin-mu directly unleashed his attack and blasted the young void human tribe powerhouse out of the arena. The sevenfold horn dragon blast directly exploded and blasted the young void human tribe powerhouse. After his time was devoured, there was no way for him to block it. It was even more impossible for him to retaliate. To the young void human tribe powerhouse, it was like a dream. He had been severely injured by the power of the 7-stage chaos dragon explosions, and he had even been blasted out of the arena. It's a pity that this method consumes too much energy. In just a short 5 breaths of time, the devouring power was actually used up. Moreover, there is no way for me to recover it now. Kong Shin-mu felt a little uncomfortable. He had only wanted to try out his skills, but in the end, he had unleashed all of the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire's power, which had drained him completely. The power to change time came from devouring the opponent's time, but Kong Shin-mu had used up all his power to activate this ability. It was clear that this method could not be used continuously in battle. In other words, it could be used sparingly. For example, when Kong Shin-mu was dealing with that guy just now, he didn't need to increase the conversion efficiency by 100 times. He could just increase the conversion efficiency by 2 times. In that case, Kong Shin-mu could still easily kill his opponent. However, Kong Shin-mu's consumption of devouring power should only be 1/10 of what it was now, which was more than enough for him to use it 10 times. Of course, Kong Shin-mu was just casually trying it out to see what kind of effect it would have. Now that he had tried it once, he roughly understood the specific situation. Fortunately, I've cultivated the Dark Dragon Infernal skill. Kong Shin-mu had now cultivated the Dark Dragon Infernal skill to the peak of the heaven rank. His recovery speed and healing speed were relatively fast. Therefore, after a short rest, the devouring power in his body began to recover. Unfortunately, before he could rest for long, another powerhouse from the ancient Phoenix clan barged in from outside the barrier and stepped into the arena. This kind of arena battle was just that fierce. There was no chance for one to rest at all. However, powerhouses could come up and show off their skills. Even if they ran out of energy and left the arena temporarily, they would still have 2 more chances to go up. This arena battle would last for 3 days, and only the last 16 people standing in the arena would enter the top 16. However, if one performed well enough in the early stages, there would be rewards. This was the secret bet of the supreme powerhouses. Emperor Shi had mentioned it to Kong Shin-mu before. Other than the ranking of the arena battle, there were 2 other rankings. One was the total time one lasted in the arena, and the other was the total number of opponents one defeated in the arena. The longer one lasted in the arena and the more opponents one defeated, the higher one's ranking would be in these 2 aspects. For the supreme powerhouses, this was considered a bet. It also involved the distribution of cultivation resources in the future. Of course, this issue was not discussed with ordinary cultivators because it was not necessary. However, some of the seeded contestants from the various clans were instructed to try to stay in the arena as long as possible and defeat as many opponents as possible. Therefore, Kong Shin-mu thought the same. It would be best if he could stay in the arena until the end of the 3 days. In this way, he would at least be ranked first in the arena for the longest time. As for the number of opponents he defeated, this was not something he could control. If he were to stay in this arena for 3 days, then perhaps the others would soon lose the intention to challenge him, because he was too strong. If the experts who challenged him time and time again were all beaten back, then the others would not recklessly come up to him and send their heads to him. Kong Shin-mu carefully looked at the ancient Phoenix clan cultivator in front of him. He could not tell whether this person was a man or a woman. After all, he could see that the other party had transformed into a fire phoenix body. This fire phoenix inherited blood essence body exuded endless flame power. As soon as he came to the arena, he launched an incomparably fierce attack towards Kong Shin-mu. An endless sea of flames spread across the arena. This was a flame that burned the void. The entire arena, including the void, began to burn. In an instant, the sea of flames spread across the entire arena. It could be seen that this ancient Phoenix clan cultivator was also quite powerful. As for Kong Shin-mu, He happened to be a little weak at the moment. Therefore, he did not choose to fight his opponent head-on. Instead, he directly used his devouring power to spread to the surroundings and began to devour the flames that burned in the void. These flames were extremely aggressive. Even the devouring power that Kong Shinmu used to engulf and devour it was burned by these flames. Only then could the power of these flames be completely devoured and then transformed into the purest devouring power of Kong Shinmu. On the arena, Kong Shinmu could be said to be a tireless machine. The power that he had just consumed was restored at an extremely terrifying speed by devouring the flame power. However, at this moment, he was already surrounded by a terrifying sea of flames. These flames were of many colors: white, yellow, purple, black. All kinds of flames covered the entire arena and had completely enveloped Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu could feel that his dragon scales were a little scorched. Chapter 1034. Consecutive victories. The inherent strength that the ancient Phoenix clan controlled was more of the power of fire. Basically, there were flames of various colors. Different colored flames could burn different things. It was a little similar to the flame rings that Kong Shinmu had encountered in the supreme ruins that belonged to the heavenly deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire. Some could burn souls, some could burn space, and so on. The power of the ancient Phoenix clan was similar. Kong Shinmu's current use of the power of ice and fire belonged to a very basic type. Although he had the inheritance of the heavenly deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire, he wasn't proficient in this aspect. If he wanted to display more of its power, Kong Shinmu would need to obtain other things that belonged to the heavenly deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire. It was said that there were only a few inheritances of this bloodline, but each one was a terrifyingly strong powerhouse. The bloodline of the heavenly deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire was also a relatively rare type in this world. If Kong Shinmu could find the remains of other heavenly deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire and devour them, then Kong Shinmu's control of the heavenly deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire would greatly improve. Of course, the possibility of this was still relatively small. Therefore, Kong Shinmu hadn't studied the power of ice and fire in the heavenly deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire. He hadn't placed much hope in it. The flame power of this ancient phoenix powerhouse in front of him right now was the true power of fire. Now that Kong Shinmu was shrouded in a sea of flames, he felt that not only his divine dragon body was being burned, but his mind and soul were also being burned. However, as he continued to devour the flames around him, his resistance to these flames had reached its limit. If he devoured for a while, his resistance would increase to a terrifying level. This was the effect of his continuous refinement of the power of samsara. At this time, although Jiang Shenwu felt like he was being burned, it was basically like a sheet of iron being roasted by fire. He didn't feel it too deeply. He could even wander in this sea of fire like he was swimming. There would be no danger. Of course, the prerequisite was that Kong Shinmu had to maintain his divine dragon tyrant body art's defensive stance. Otherwise, he would be burned to ashes in an instant. The attacking power of these flames was no joke. If it were anyone else, they would have to constantly defend themselves in this sea of flames and bitterly resist. They wouldn't even have a chance to counterattack. But now, Kong Shinmu wandered in this sea of flames like a flaming fish. He didn't seem to be burned by the power of fire at all. At this moment, he rapidly swept towards the ancient phoenix powerhouse. 9th stage extreme roaring dragon explosion. Kong Shinmu had already tested the effects of the heavenly deficient demonic ice and fire dragon. It could be said that he could only use it in conjunction with his own devouring power to produce a certain effect. In this arena battle, it wasn't very suitable for him to use it. Therefore, he basically gave up. There was no need to use this method. In any case, it was impossible for him to break through to the next realm in such a short period of time if he relied on the conversion efficiency of this method. He swept towards the ancient phoenix powerhouse. The ancient phoenix powerhouse was surrounded by the power of fire. He could completely control Kong Shinmu's position. Sensing Kong Shinmu's attack, a barrier of fire appeared in front of him, blocking Kong Shinmu's path forward. It was a pity that Kong Shinmu instantly shuttled through the void. Originally, where the flames were located, even space was being burned. If others wanted to travel through the void, they would have to break through his flames first. However, Jiang Shenwu's perception of the power of the void was far beyond that of a cultivator at this level. Therefore, he only needed to casually erupt his power before he directly shuttled through the void and appeared behind the ancient Phoenix clan cultivator. Immediately after, 7 roaring dragon explosions exploded behind the ancient phoenix powerhouse. The terrifying power exploded into bursts of ripples that sent the ancient phoenix powerhouse's flaming phoenix body flying. The strength of this ancient phoenix powerhouse was clearly inferior to that of the void human powerhouse. Of course, this was only a matter of focus. If this ancient phoenix powerhouse were to face an army of 1,000 or even 10,000 king stage cultivators, he could easily kill them all by himself. However, if it were Kong Shinmu facing an army of 10,000 Dragon King stage cultivators, it would be very difficult for him to kill them all in one fell swoop. This ancient phoenix powerhouse was born for war. All of his cultivation was focused on large-scale attacks. Therefore, he couldn't display too much of his strength in this arena battle. As the saying went, there was a specialization in every field. During the arena battle, everyone cultivated different types of martial arts and battle weapons, which would also have a great impact. After all, not everyone only focused on improving their combat strength in one-on-one battles. There were even many cultivators who were proficient in concealment and assassination. In an arena battle, this kind of ability was even more disadvantageous. This was because the opponent would already be mentally prepared for your concealment and assassination. Therefore, it would be extremely difficult to display the original effect. It could even be said that you wouldn't be able to display even half of your strength. However, if it wasn't in an arena battle, but in a place like the Supreme Ruins, concealment and assassination methods could dominate the entire Supreme Ruins. This was because different types of abilities were suitable for different combat situations. Fortunately, the techniques that Kong Shinmu had cultivated were suitable for all kinds of combat situations. There weren't any situations that particularly restrained him. The ancient Phoenix powerhouse was defeated by Kong Shinmu again. This shocked many dragon martial artists of the martial dragon continent. This Kong Shinmu was very strong. The first opponent from the Void Human tribe didn't even know how he lost. As for the second opponent from the ancient Phoenix tribe, he was restrained by Kong Shinmu and directly blasted out of the arena. The third opponent was from the Demon God tribe. He was an inheritor of the Black Wolf Demon God's bloodline. He was proficient in strength and speed, and his physical strength was even stronger than Kong Shinmu's. However, although this inheritor of the Black Wolf Demon God's bloodline had tyrannical attacks and strength, he was completely restrained by Kong Shinmu's comprehension of the power of the void. Once Kong Shinmu couldn't resist anymore, he would directly shuttle through the void to avoid his opponent's attacks. Of course, his opponent also had some trapping methods, but these trapping methods were all broken by Kong Shinmu one by one. In the end, Kong Shinmu once again blasted his opponent out of the arena area with the 7-fold spectral dragon explosion, successfully defending the arena. It had to be said that Kong Shinmu's combat strength was very strong. Moreover, the most terrifying thing was that he had experienced 3 fierce battles in a row. During this time, he had repeatedly looked exhausted, but in the end, he had used some special method to recover. Chapter 4806. The inheritance strength that the ancient Phoenix clan controlled was more of the power of fire. Basically, they were all different colors of flames. Different colors of flames could burn different things. It was similar to the flame rings that Jiang Shenwu had encountered in the supreme relic that belonged to the heaven-deficient ice-fire demonic dragon. Some could burn souls, some could burn space, and so on. The power of the ancient Phoenix clan was similar. Kong Shinmu's current use of the power of ice and fire was at a very basic level. Although he had the inheritance of the heaven-deficient demonic ice-fire dragon, he wasn't proficient in this aspect. If he wanted to display more of its power, Kong Shinmu would need to obtain other things that belonged to the heaven-deficient demonic ice-fire dragon. It was said that there were only a few inheritances of this bloodline, but each one was a terrifyingly strong powerhouse. The bloodline of the heaven-deficient demonic ice-fire dragon was also a relatively rare type in this world. If Kong Shinmu could find the remains of other heaven-deficient demonic ice-fire dragon inheritors and devour them, then Kong Shinmu's control of the heaven-deficient ice-fire dragon's power would improve greatly. Of course, the possibility of that was still small. That was why Kong Shinmu hadn't studied the power of ice and fire in the heaven-deficient demonic ice-fire dragon. He hadn't placed much hope in it. The power of fire in front of him from the ancient Phoenix clan powerhouse was the true power of fire. Now that Kong Shinmu was shrouded in a sea of fire, he felt that not only his divine dragon body was being burned, but his mind and soul were also being burned. However, as he continued to devour the flames around him, his resistance to them had reached the limit. If he devoured for a while, his resistance would increase to a terrifying degree. This was the result of his continuous refining of the power of samsara. At this time, although Jiang Shenwu felt like he was being burned, it was basically like a sheet of iron being roasted by fire. He didn't feel it too deeply. He could even wander in this sea of fire like he was swimming. There would be no danger. Of course, the premise was that Kong Shinmu had to maintain his divine dragon tyrant body art's defensive posture. Otherwise, he would be burned to ashes in an instant. The attacking power of these flames was not to be trifled with. If it were anyone else, they would only be able to defend themselves in this sea of fire. They wouldn't even have a chance to counterattack. But now, Kong Shinmu wandered in the sea of fire like a fish in flames. He didn't seem to be affected by the power of fire. At this moment, he rapidly swept towards the ancient Phoenix clan powerhouse. 9th stage Extreme Dao Roaring Dragon Explosion. Jiang Shenwu had already tried out the heaven-deficient demonic ice and fire dragon's effect. He could only use it in conjunction with his own devouring power to produce a certain effect. However, it was not suitable to use it in an arena battle. Therefore, he basically gave up. There was no need to use this method. Anyway, it was impossible for him to break through the realm in such a short time by relying on the conversion efficiency of this event. He swept towards the ancient Phoenix powerhouse. The ancient Phoenix powerhouse was surrounded by his power of fire. He could completely control Kong Shinmu's position. Sensing Kong Shinmu's attack, a barrier of fire appeared in front of him, blocking Kong Shinmu's path. Unfortunately, Kong Shinmu shuttled through the void in an instant. Originally, where the flames were located, even space was being burned. If others wanted to travel through the void, they would have to break through his flames first. However, Jiang Shenwu's perception of the power of the void was far beyond that of a cultivator at this level. Therefore, he only needed to casually erupt his power before he directly shuttled through the void and appeared behind the ancient Phoenix clan cultivator. Immediately after, 7 streaks of the ancient Phoenix powerhouse exploded behind him. The terrifying power exploded into waves of ripples that sent the flaming phoenix body of the ancient Phoenix powerhouse flying. The strength of this ancient Phoenix powerhouse was clearly inferior to that of the virtual human powerhouse. Of course, this was only a matter of focus. If this ancient Phoenix powerhouse were to face an army of 1,000 or even 10,000 king stage cultivators, he could easily kill them all by himself. However, if it were Kong Shinmu facing an army of 10,000 Dragon King stage cultivators, it would be very difficult for him to kill all of them in one fell swoop. This ancient Phoenix powerhouse was born for war. All of his cultivation was focused on large-scale attacks. Therefore, he couldn't display too much of his strength in this arena battle. As the saying went, there was a specialization in every field. In this arena battle, everyone cultivated different types of martial arts and battle weapons, which would also have a great impact. After all, not everyone only focused on improving their combat strength in one-on-one battles. There were even many cultivators who were proficient in concealment and assassination. In an arena battle, this kind of ability was even more disadvantageous. This was because the opponent was already mentally prepared for your concealment and assassination, so it would be extremely difficult to display the original effect. It could even be said that you wouldn't be able to display even half of your strength. However, if it wasn't in an arena battle, but in a place like the Supreme Ruins, concealment and assassination methods could dominate the entire Supreme Ruins. This was because different types of abilities were suitable for different combat situations. Fortunately, the techniques that Kong Shinmu had cultivated were suitable for various combat situations. There were no situations that particularly restrained him. The ancient Phoenix powerhouse was defeated by Kong Shinmu again. This shocked many of the dragon martial artists of the martial dragon mainland. This Kong Shinmu was strong. His first opponent from the virtual human tribe didn't even know how he lost. As for the second opponent from the ancient Phoenix clan, he was restrained by Kong Shinmu and directly blasted out of the arena. The third opponent was from the Demon God clan. He was an inheritor of the Black Wolf Demon God's bloodline. He was proficient in strength and speed, and his physical strength was even stronger than Kong Shinmu's. However, although this inheritor of the Black Wolf Demon God's bloodline had tyrannical attacks and strength, he was completely restrained by Kong Shinmu's ability to comprehend the power of the void. Once Jiang Shenwu could no longer resist, he would directly shuttle through the void to avoid the opponent's attack, making it impossible for the opponent to catch him. Of course, the opponent also had some trapping methods, But these trapping methods were all countered by Jiang Shenwu. In the end, Kong Shinmu once again blasted his opponent out of the arena area with the sevenfold spectral dragon explosion, successfully defending the arena. It had to be said that Kong Shinmu's combat strength was very strong. Moreover, the most terrifying thing was that he had experienced 3 fierce battles in a row. During this time, it seemed like he was exhausted, but in the end, he had used some special method to recover. Chapter 4807. There were a total of 16 arenas in the arena. Other than Kong Shinmu, who had won 3 battles in a row, the other 15 arenas had changed their arena masters. Obviously, the first arena master who ran into the arena first was not as strong as everyone thought. Many people were good at speed or had a unique perception of the void, so they could catch up with the first arena master as fast as they could. However, these kinds of cultivators were relatively weak in other aspects. When fighting in the arena, they could not make use of their advantage in speed or perception of the void. Of course, they could not defeat their opponents. There were even some like Kong Shinmu who could travel through the void directly to the arena. Other than Kong Shinmu, no one at the 4th level of the Emperor level could travel through the void continuously. Therefore, after these cultivators used the method of traveling through the void to the arena, they could not travel through the void in the first battle, so they could not avoid the threat of some fatal combat skills. This was the source of their failure. Therefore, now that Kong Shinmu had won 3 battles in a row, it was quite terrifying for the experts of the various races who were watching the battle. In the arena, more than half of the 20 supreme existences from the 10 races were paying attention to Kong Shinmu. When they felt that Kong Shinmu still had a lot of energy in his body, they were even more shocked. The Dragon God clan had some methods to maintain their strength, such as the Dark Dragon Filth Controlling Technique. There were even dragon martial arts techniques that were stronger than the Dark Dragon Filth Controlling Technique. However, none of them were as heaven-defying as this one. In such an intense battle, Kong Shinmu could actually maintain his energy? This was too unbelievable. Wasn't there a junior from the Dragon Gods who obtained a 9-layer engraved heaven and earth holy item not long ago? It seems to be this kid. What? I heard about this. It is said that the demon gods suffered a great loss. Even that little guy, the evil prince, died in the supreme relic. Not only that, even the Bloody Rose fan was taken away by this kid. The demon gods suffered a great loss. But I never thought that this dragon martial artist would be from the dragon martial continent. No wonder. The Dragon God clan suddenly wants to protect the martial dragon continent. It seems like it's because of this monstrous genius. Pass down the order. We can give up this arena. There's no need to fight against this dragon warrior named Kong Shinmu. Of course, there are occasionally some stronger kids who can create some surprises for this Kong Shinmu. Since there was a ranking competition in the dark based on the number of opponents defeated, these supreme powerhouses of the major races naturally did not want Kong Shinmu to defeat more opponents. Let Kong Shinmu stay in the arena. Occasionally, he would let some of the stronger experts launch a surprise attack on Kong Shinmu. After all, this arena battle would last for 3 days. It was impossible for Kong Shinmu to maintain his vigor during these 3 days, right? As long as he was absent-minded or distracted for a moment, it was very likely that someone would directly rush into the arena and defeat Kong Shinmu. In any case, after Kong Shinmu defeated the Demon God clan Black Wolf Blood Essence Inheritor, no one came to his arena. However, there were still many people in the surrounding void eyeing Kong Shinmu as if they were ready to attack his arena at any time. This made Kong Shinmu a little puzzled. These guys were really sinister. In this case, he had to maintain a high degree of concentration at all times. He could not relax at all. However, he could not continuously defeat his opponents to accumulate the number of times he defeated his opponents. It seemed that the longer he stayed in the arena, the more he defeated his opponents. If he wanted to defeat more opponents, his performance could not be too eye-catching. It was a pity that Kong Shinmu had used too much strength in the first 3 battles, which directly showed that he had combat strength that surpassed this stage. Next, there were only 15 arenas left for others to compete in. During this period, Kong Shinmu also saw some dragon martial artists fighting in the arena. The first person he was more concerned about was Liang Xiao. Liang Xiao was now at the 6th stage of the Reincarnation Tribulation Realm. He had also condensed the reincarnation power twice, which was equivalent to the 8th stage of the Reincarnation Tribulation Realm. Moreover, He had the strongest high-grade divine spirit dragon martial technique and the strongest heaven-grade divine spirit dragon weapon. These two aspects were the strongest at this stage. However, he was not very familiar with the use of the heaven-grade divine spirit dragon weapon, so he could not display its full power. As for the high-grade divine spirit dragon martial technique, he had not cultivated it to its peak. However, this was not a problem because his opponents had not reached the age of 50. At this age, there was simply no one who could cultivate the high-grade divine spirit dragon martial technique to its peak. Perhaps such people existed, but it was obvious that such people were extremely rare. Liang Xiao fought 2 consecutive battles and did not encounter any. He directly challenged an opponent from the Thousand-Winged Snake clan and directly chased him out of the arena. Then, he defeated an expert from the Star Divinity clan who had come to attack him. The experts of the Star Divinity clan could condense star god phantoms, which were similar to the water god phantoms of the Talisman clan. After the star god phantoms appeared, they could use the power of the stars to erupt with unparalleled destructive power. In terms of destructive power, the experts of the Star Divinity clan were probably the strongest among the 10 major clans. The inheritance of the Star Divinity clan came from the star god, which was similar to the Talisman water god's inheritance. Of course, in the eyes of the demon god ancestor, whether it was the star god or the Talisman water god, they were not the top experts in this world. The truly powerful ones were still the divine dragons. In ancient times, the divine dragons were definitely the strongest race, and they were existences that had the power to rule. It was only later that the divine dragon clan declined, and only then did the demon gods, and so on rise. Of course, there were many stories about the decline of the divine dragon clan. The consciousness of the demon god ancestor did not say much to Kong Xin Mu, since it was useless anyway. At this stage, the dragon gods were the descendants of the divine dragon clan. Because of their strong heritage, the overall strength of the dragon gods was still very strong. As for the original mystical dragons, no one knew where they were now. In any case, in the dragon gods' great world, there were supreme holy lands everywhere, and the supreme holy lands were the places where the ancient divine dragons had fallen. Many mystical dragons had already perished. Chapter 4808. Now, the situation in the arena was relatively stable. Basically, no one from Kong Xin Mu's side would come to deal with him. Even if someone came, it was just a chance to see if he had let down his guard, so it was just a casual attempt. Basically, on average, one person would come to challenge Kong Xin Mu every 6 hours. The rest of the time, they were all eyeing Kong Xin Mu like a tiger watching its prey, so Kong Xin Mu could not stop focusing. This situation made Kong Xin Mu feel quite helpless. However, there was no other way. Even if he could not win the first place for Emperor Shi Mystical Dragon to defeat the most opponents, at least he could win the longest stay in the arena. Getting first place in one of the 2 rankings was already a good result. Moreover, after 2 days, Kong Xin Mu had already defeated 8 opponents. This number was quite amazing. It should be known that many practitioners had 3 chances to challenge, but each time, they could only defeat 1 or 2 opponents. To be able to defeat 3 people in a row was already very impressive. Of course, during these 2 days, many geniuses of the 4th level of the Imperial level had also emerged from the 9 major races. Each of these geniuses had combat power comparable to Xiaobai, Liang Xiao and the others. Fortunately, Xiaobai had also improved a lot in the Dragon God's world these days. Coupled with the increase in combat power from the heaven-level Holy Dragon weapon, her combat power was slightly stronger than Liang Xiao, Ran, and the others. Therefore, although Xiaobai had only used up 1 chance to challenge, that chance allowed her to defeat 6 opponents in a row. It was not until the 7th opponent came up that Xiaobai was finally defeated. In fact, Xiaobai was not actually defeated. She had used up all her strength, so she simply admitted defeat. For her, admitting defeat was not a big deal. Anyway, she was not like Kong Xin Mu, who could fight in the arena without any restrictions. Kong Xin Mu was now basically a restricted area in the arena. Basically, no one in the arena came to challenge him. He had been in the arena for 2 days. Except for him, the longest time spent in the arena was only half a day. It could be said that the person who had dominated the arena for the longest time was definitely him. Even if he stepped down now or gave up fighting in the arena, he would definitely get the honor of staying in the arena for the longest time. This made Kong Xin Mu, Emperor Shi Mystical Dragon, and the others in the audience all feel relieved. There was no doubt that the ranking that Jiang Xinwu obtained would be of great help to the Dragon God clan in fighting for a certain amount of cultivation resources in the future. The Dragon God clan could even use this to set more conditions and obtain more benefits. If one had to calculate how much benefit Kong Xinmu could bring to the Dragon Gods this time, it would be more than 1 million gold coins. This was an incredible amount. Even Emperor Shi didn't have such a great amount of wealth. Hence, Emperor Shi was already very satisfied that Jiang Xinwu could stay on the arena for the longest time. Moreover, what Kong Xinmu wanted was more than that. Up to now, 10 of the 16 arenas were dominated. The cultivators in these 10 arenas were extremely strong, but they were all about the same level as Kong Xinmu. The number of challengers was already relatively small. Between the 9 major clans and the Dragon Gods, because the one who wanted to defeat the most opponents was ranked first, there might be some secret deals going on. Anyway, Kong Xinmu could see that some cultivators were strong, but logically speaking, there would not be so many people constantly challenging them. However, for a period of time, there was a race that kept challenging that strong cultivator, giving the number of defeats to that strong cultivator. Up to now, that strong cultivator from the Demon God clan had consecutively defeated a total of 14 people. This made Kong Xinmu pay a little attention to the surrounding strong cultivators while he was wary of the attacks of the surrounding strong cultivators. Kong Xinmu had only defeated 9 people, but that strong cultivator from the Demon God clan had defeated 14 people consecutively. It was clear that he was also very strong. More importantly, under such a strong situation, there were still cultivators from other clans who kept challenging him. This was the cause of the matter. It seemed that a strong cultivator from the Void Human tribe had been seriously injured when he challenged the strong cultivator from the Demon God clan. Therefore, the Void Human tribe was not happy. They wanted to defeat this person even if they had to fight him one after another. Therefore, a total of 8 people kept challenging the strong cultivator from the Demon God clan. However, they were all defeated by the strong cultivator from the Demon God clan. Therefore, this strong cultivator from the Demon God clan was the one who had defeated the most opponents. This young man from the Demon God clan is called the Demon Snake Prince. He is the most talented member of the younger generation of the Demon God clan, the Snake Demon tribe. The Demon Snake Prince is very strong. He also has some kind of method to absorb the power of the void to recover. The strong cultivators from the Void Human tribe who fought against him did not expect this. However, this Demon Snake Prince seems a little strange. The opponents he defeated were clearly not a match for him, but they insisted on fighting him one after another as if they were giving him a chance to defeat them. It's normal for the 9 tribes to have some secret agreements. However, this Demon Snake Prince has forced the strong cultivators from the Void Human tribe to fight him one after another. This doesn't mean anything. After all, the strong cultivators have a reason to fight him one after another. No matter what, I look down on such despicable methods. Of course, the Demon Snake Prince's battle strength is still very strong. I just don't know who is stronger, him or that Kong Xinmu. It must be the Demon Snake Prince. After all, the Demon Snake Prince has an orthodox bloodline. As for that Kong Xinmu, I don't know what kind of innate talent he has. As a dragon martial artist, he is quite strong. However, compared to the Demon Snake Prince of the Demon God clan, he should be slightly weaker. Demon Snake Prince. Of course, Kong Xinmu now knew the name of the strong cultivator from the Demon God clan. He also knew that the Demon Snake Prince's strength lay in the fact that he had 3 heaven-grade demon weapons that had been dazzled. Although they had only been dazzled once, it was enough for him to be invincible in this kind of situation. The demon martial skill that the Demon Snake Prince cultivated was also a top-notch demon martial skill that could be cultivated by an emperor-level cultivator. Moreover, he had cultivated it to a rather good level. This made his battle strength slightly stronger than that of Xiao Bai and the others. Kong Xinmu pondered for a moment and realized that the Demon Snake Prince had just defeated another young strong cultivator from the Void Human tribe. He was trying to absorb the power of the void to recover his own strength. This gave Kong Xinmu an idea. He didn't hesitate in the slightest as he directly exploded out and shuttled towards the arena where the Demon Snake Prince was. The void was directly broken by Kong Xinmu. Immediately after, his black dragon body rushed into the arena where the Demon Snake Prince was. Kong Xinmu wanted to challenge the Demon Snake Prince. Chapter 4809. At this moment, it seemed as if Kong Xinmu was targeting the Demon Snake Prince. This scene caused all the experts present to be stunned. They did not expect that Kong Shinmu would directly enter the arena where the Demon Snake Prince was. It was also at this moment that a Void Human Tribe expert happened to be planning to continue fighting the Demon Snake Prince. He could not help but feel a little depressed when he saw that Jiang Shenwu had beaten him to it. That's good. This Kong Shinmu looks very strong. If he can defeat the Demon Snake Prince, he will have avenged our junior brother. The powerhouse from the virtual human tribe sneered as he watched the battle from outside the arena. Kong Shinmu sensed his sneer. He glanced at him but did not say anything. From the voice of this powerful being from the Void Human Tribe, it seemed like the Void Human Tribe had come one after another to deliver their heads to the demonic Snake Prince, not because of any prior arrangement. It was as if they were enraged by the fact that their tribesmen had been severely injured, so they decided to take turns to fight. However, Jiang Shenwu knew very well that all of this had been arranged. It was just that these Void Human Tribe cultivators who had been sent here to take turns didn't know what kind of deal the powerhouses behind them had made. It was obvious that these cultivators from the Virtual Human Tribe were being used. The higher-ups of the Virtual Human Tribe had made a deal with the Demon God Tribe so that the Demon Snake Prince could defeat more opponents. As for what they had gained, no one knew. In any case, these cultivators from the Virtual Human Tribe did not know. They were only angered and attacked the Demon Snake Prince. This made Kong Shinmu feel very helpless. Did the higher-ups of the Virtual Human Tribe not treat the cultivators of their tribe as humans? For the sake of benefits, they actually used the relationship between their tribe members to benefit another tribe. There was no doubt that the Demon God Tribe benefited greatly from this. However, if the Virtual Human Tribe cooperated with them and gave the Demon Snake Prince more opponents, the Virtual Human Tribe would also benefit from the cooperation. There was some cooperation between the Demon God Tribe and the Virtual Human Tribe. It was no wonder that the ancient Phoenix Tribe treated the Demon God Tribe, the Virtual Human Tribe, and the Talisman Water Tribe as enemies. At this moment, Kong Shinmu directly descended and shuttled to the Demonic Snake Prince's arena. Demon Snake Prince, right? Kong Shinmu narrowed his eyes and looked at him. He wasn't here just to knock the Demon Snake Prince off the arena, but to beat the Demon Snake Prince to death and cripple him. If he was only knocked down, then the Demon Snake Prince could still go on the stage. After all, everyone had 3 chances. However, if he were to kill or cripple the Demon Snake Prince, then he would not have another chance to go on the stage. This was undoubtedly the best choice for Kong Shinmu. What's wrong, Kong Shinmu? Why aren't you guarding your arena? What are you doing here? The Demon Snake Prince appeared on the arena in his demon snake form. At this moment, the reflection of Kong Shinmu's black dragon figure was in his demon snake eyes. It was obvious that he was very cautious. He was very wary of Kong Shinmu's arrival. He was well aware of how powerful Kong Shinmu was. Thus, even though he had occupied an arena, he had never thought of looking for trouble with Kong Shinmu. When the 16 arena battles ended in 3 days, and it was time for the elimination round, he also wanted to avoid fighting Kong Shinmu. However, he didn't expect that while the Demon God Tribe and the Virtual Human Tribe were manipulating, Kong Shinmu would actually jump onto his arena and try to cause trouble. This scene caused the supreme powerhouses of the Demon God Tribe and the Virtual Human Tribe to change their expressions slightly. This was especially so for the Demon God Tribe. Their supreme powerhouse was sitting high up in the spectator stands. His face was a little pale. He really didn't expect the Dragon Gods to be so disrespectful. They actually wanted to defeat the Demon Snake Prince? So arrogant. In that case, let's do as he wishes. Defeat that Kong Shinmu and give him a severe blow. The Supreme Powerhouse gave an order to the Demon Snake Prince. Of course, this was done secretly. What he meant by a severe blow was that if possible, it would be best if he could kill or cripple Kong Shinmu. Of course, the Supreme Powerhouse of the Demon God Tribe wasn't optimistic about this. He now knew that Kong Shinmu had killed the Evil Prince in the Supreme Relic. In terms of combat strength, the Evil Prince was slightly stronger than the Demon Snake Prince. Although it was because of the Scarlet Rose fan, Kong Shinmu had defeated the Evil Prince who had the Scarlet Rose fan. The Demon Snake Prince didn't have a Scarlet Rose fan. Even if he did, he couldn't use it under the rules of the arena. Therefore, in terms of combat strength, the Demon Snake Prince didn't have a Scarlet Rose fan. However, the Demon Snake Prince wasn't just good at fighting head-on. To him, he was best at using poisons, spiritual attacks, and illusions. Therefore, the demon god tribe powerhouses still had some expectations for the demon snake prince. In the arena, the supreme powerhouses of the demon god tribe and the void human tribe were obviously a little gloomy when their plans were foiled. However, the supreme powerhouses of the other 8 major tribes were now watching the arena calmly. The Talisman Water Tribe, the Ancient Phoenix Tribe, the Star Divinity Tribe, and the other tribes were naturally unwilling to see the demon snake prince dominating the arena. Not only that, but the cultivators of the void human tribe also went up to give him a gift. This was too shameless. However, there was really no way to say that the void human tribe was giving him a gift. The demon snake prince was taking revenge for his tribesmen. Why would they give him a gift? Now that Kong Shinmu had actually entered the arena, it was obvious that he couldn't stand it and wanted to chase the demon snake prince off the arena. This was also something that the other tribes were quite happy to see. Therefore, no one stopped Kong Shinmu. No matter what, it was impossible to stop him. Therefore, Kong Shinmu successfully arrived at the arena where the demon snake prince was and immediately launched an attack at the demon snake prince. 9th stage Ultimate Wyvern Explosion. The 7th-stage Flood Dragon explosion erupted with a loud rumble. Jiang Shenwu had unleashed it in a powerful offensive manner, sweeping towards the body of the demon serpent prince that had transformed into a demon serpent prince. The surrounding void constantly exploded, bursting with terrifying energy ripples that spread towards the surroundings. The demon snake prince had already taken out one of his heaven-ranked demon weapons and released a terrifying power. It was the eye of a scaled snake. When it was activated by the demon snake prince, a black light instantly burst out, enveloping his entire body as a defense. The power of Kong Shinmu's 7th-stage Wyvern explosion directly swept through his opponent's defense, but it couldn't break through the black light defense. This surprised Kong Shinmu. This fellow's defensive demon weapon is really powerful. Chapter 48:10. When Kong Shinmu attacked, he used the 7th-stage Thunder Dragon explosion. To Kong Shinmu, this wasn't his strongest attack. At most, it was just a probing attack. However, the strength of this attack was enough to make the demonic snake prince feel some pressure. The demonic snake prince had just defeated 8 experts of the void human tribe in a row. Although he could devour the energy of the void to recover his strength, he was still a little weak. At the very least, he would be mentally exhausted after fighting for so long. The demonic snake prince suffered one of Kong Shinmu's attacks, causing his face to stiffen. He could feel that Kong Shinmu's strength was definitely not comparable to that of the void human tribe cultivators he had just fought. This Kong Shinmu was too strong. A casual attack from him had forced him to use his powerful defensive demon weapon. If this wasn't Kong Shinmu's ultimate strength, then he definitely wouldn't be a match for Kong Shinmu. However, the demon serpent prince had been in the 4th layer of the Emperor realm for a very long time, and he had also experienced the exploration of 2 primary ruins. Therefore, he had a very deep understanding of the strength of the 4th layer of the Emperor realm. He felt that under the situation where he didn't use his heaven-ranked weapon, his battle strength was already at the peak. It was absolutely impossible to say that Kong Shinmu was stronger than him, unless Kong Shinmu had a heaven-grade divine dragon weapon that could be used more times than him. Therefore, Kong Shinmu's attack without using his divine dragon weapon should be his strongest attack, right? Using his strongest attack right from the start, this Kong Shinmu seemed to be a little silly. The demon serpent prince thought to himself, but he sneered on the surface. His demon serpent body was like a swimming dragon, and he was like a fish swimming in water in the void. He cultivated the demon god race's inherited bloodline, the void demon serpent. He was like a fish swimming in water in the void, and he was the best at fighting. The void demon snake's inherited bloodline of the demon god race gave it an extremely strong comprehension of the void energy. Most importantly, it could absorb the void energy to recover. It could be said that this was a type of bloodline power that specialized in restraining the void human tribe. As such, it was normal for the void human tribe cultivators to hate him. Of course, it was not normal for 8 cultivators to go up on stage in succession. Even though he knew that he couldn't win, he still came forward. Either he was out of his mind, or he had other motives. Therefore, the purpose of Kong Shinmu's visit this time was to end the demon snake prince's winning streak. The demon snake prince's snake body was like a swimming dragon as it wandered through the void. It was almost hidden in the void. Kong Shinmu did not need to use any real methods to deal with an opponent of this level, but he wanted to directly kill or cripple the demon snake prince. Since that was the case, there was no need for him to hold back. When the demon snake prince swept towards Kong Shinmu and attempted to launch an attack, Kong Shinmu moved even faster. The devouring power in his body had completely condensed and erupted at this moment. It happened in an instant. The power of the illusory ghost book completely erupted at this moment. The offensive battle marks were completely ignited by the devouring power, releasing a terrifying attack. The 8-stage Hydra explosion was unleashed with the power of the illusory ghost book. Even though the demon snake prince had an extremely strong understanding of the void power, he was unable to detect the power of the illusory ghost book immediately. By the time he detected it, it was already too late. After all, he was not a peak emperor-level existence like Linghu Dai. At this moment, he did not even have the time to react. The powerful power of the 8-stage Hydra explosion pierced through the void with the power of the illusory ghost book. With the help of the concealment formation, it silently appeared beside the demon snake prince's snake body. Then, it suddenly exploded. If the demon snake prince had defended himself in advance, he might have been able to defend against the 8-stage Hydra explosion. However, Kong Shinmu had borrowed the power of the illusory ghost book, so the demon snake prince was unable to defend himself in time. In the next moment, the demon snake prince, who was just about to attack Kong Shinmu, was completely enveloped by the explosion of the 8-stage Hydra explosion. The terrifying power spread in all directions, transforming into power ripples that swept across the entire arena. The demon snake prince's snake body did not have the slightest ability to resist. At this moment, the 8-stage Hydra explosion had instantly caused him to be seriously injured. His entire body was drenched in blood. Countless devouring power circulated within it, corroding all the power in his body. Kong Shinmu used the devouring power to directly devour all the power of the void demon snake prince's body. At this moment, what surprised Kong Shinmu was that he had actually obtained some comprehension of the void power. Although the level of this comprehension was not as high as Linghu Dai-er's, it was still a different path. For Kong Shinmu, it was a great reference. It could even allow Kong Shinmu's comprehension of the void power to reach another level. Of course, right now, Kong Shinmu did not have the time to digest the devouring power. He had to wait until the end of the arena battle. In the arena, he had to use all his mental energy to defend against the challenges of the surrounding races. In other words, it could be said that they were sneak attacks. Therefore, he could not waste his energy on devouring power to improve himself. However, heaven-deficient power, devour. At this moment, when Kong Shinmu was facing the heavily injured demon snake prince, he naturally did not feel the slightest bit of pressure. He immediately began to devour the passing time around him. As the power of time was devoured, Kong Shinmu enjoyed a longer period of time. In a short period of time, he had completely devoured the demon snake prince's comprehension of the void power. It could even be said that the demon snake prince's current comprehension of the void power had suffered a great loss. This was not the same as when Kong Shinmu had devoured the power of Linghu Dai-er's wind shadow flowing flash. Instead, he was directly devouring the source of the demon snake prince's comprehension of the void power. This was a completely different concept. This would affect the demon snake prince's realm of strength. It might even make it difficult for him to reach a stronger state in his future cultivation. This was a very sinister method. However, at the moment, no one had discovered it. The supreme existences could detect the heaven-deficient demonic dragon of ice and fire's devouring power. However, Kong Shinmu had used his own devouring power to devour the demon snake prince's comprehension of the void. This was not something they could detect. Therefore, in the eyes of the others, the demon snake prince was only seriously injured and had temporarily lost his ability to fight. No one knew that Kong Shinmu had already devoured the demon snake prince's comprehension of the void power. This had practically cut off the demon snake prince's future cultivation path. Regardless of whether it was the demon god clan or the void human clan, they were all enemies to the dragon gods. Therefore, Kong Shinmu did not show any mercy. In the next moment, he stopped and blasted the heavily injured body of the demon snake prince out of the arena. Although he didn't kill him, his current state was probably worse than death. When he woke up, he would probably want to die, right? Chapter 48:14. Everyone was shocked. No one had expected that Kong Shinmu would be able to crush the Demon Snake Prince in such a shocking manner. This was an absolute suppression of strength. Many people had been guessing what would happen if Kong Shinmu fought the Demon Snake Prince. Many people had even guessed that Kong Shinmu wouldn't be a match for the Demon Snake Prince. However, no one had expected that Kong Shinmu would severely injure the Demon Snake Prince the moment he stepped into the arena. Although the Demon Snake Prince didn't have time to display his skills and didn't even use the 2 heaven-grade demon weapons, that was his own problem. It had nothing to do with Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu's attack had been too fast, and the Demon Snake Prince hadn't been able to react in time. Wasn't this a problem of strength? If he was strong enough, Kong Shinmu wouldn't have been able to injure him. At that moment, the Demon Snake Prince's heavily injured body was blasted out of the arena. Immediately, a Demon God Clan expert appeared and caught his body. After a brief inspection, he seemed to be in good condition. After all, he lacked some understanding of the void energy. It wasn't obvious from his appearance. This was a problem of understanding, not a physical problem. Although this injury isn't serious, it's impossible for him to step into the arena again. He'll need at least 3 days to recover. The Demon God Clan expert snorted coldly and looked at Kong Shinmu. He immediately warned, "Don't think that you're truly invincible just because you're invincible in the 4th stage of the Martial Emperor realm. Today you injured the prince. If there's another opportunity in the future, don't blame the Demon God Clan for being merciless." Sorry. Kong Shinmu looked at the Demon God Clan expert and felt a little embarrassed. This situation stunned the surrounding cultivators. They didn't understand what Kong Shinmu meant. He had defeated the Demon God Clan expert in the arena because his opponent was too weak. Why was Kong Shinmu apologizing to the Demon God Clan? Were the geniuses of the Dragon Gods so cowardly and afraid? To be honest, if Kong Shinmu were to fight them head-on, others would probably think that he was a fool. After all, he would have to deal with the Demon Gods in the future. If he offended them, it would be very inconvenient for him to do things in the future. But wasn't this kind of apology a little too soft? Just when those people thought that Kong Shinmu was a coward, Kong Shinmu said, "I really didn't expect that the so-called Demon Snake Prince of your race was actually so weak. He couldn't even take one move from me. I didn't expect it. I really didn't expect it. So, I'm really sorry for beating him up so badly." However, for this guy to be able to continuously win in the arena and defeat 8 powerful beings from the Void Human tribe, forgive me for being blunt, but just how weak are those 8 so-called powerful beings from the Void Human tribe? Or is it that all of this is just an act? This is an exchange between the 10 major tribes. How could the demon gods and the Void Human tribe be so despicable as to conspire in secret to benefit from it? When Kong Shinmu said this, the faces of the demon gods and the Void Human tribe turned ashen. They really didn't expect that Kong Shinmu would so brazenly humiliate the 2 major tribes. How much courage did he have? Just these 2 sentences alone had already offended both the Void Human tribe and the Demon God tribe. However, while the members of the Void Human tribe and the Demon God tribe were enraged, the members of the other tribes were extremely pleased. Especially since they had long suspected that the Demon Snake Prince was killing people, but they had no proof. Now that Jiang Shenwu had exposed them, how could they not be pleased? "Don't talk nonsense, you knave!" The demon god powerhouse who had taken away the demon snake prince sneered. "You have no evidence. If you continue to spout nonsense, I'm afraid you won't be able to participate in the arena today." This was a clear threat. This demon god powerhouse was on the level of a super divine dragon. If he attacked Kong Shinmu, then Kong Shinmu would absolutely not be able to resist. Unfortunately, before Kong Shinmu could reply, a supreme powerhouse from the ancient Phoenix tribe said lightly, "If you want to fight in the arena, then fight in the arena. Why are you spouting so much nonsense? Demon God tribe, your demon snake prince is too weak." Little brother Kong Shinmu's words are also very reasonable. That is to say, there is no evidence. If there was, then your demon god tribe and the void human tribe would have lost the right to participate in this arena. This was the statement of a supreme powerhouse from the ancient Phoenix tribe. This powerhouse from the ancient Phoenix tribe was a male. His entire body was bathed in flames, so it was impossible to see what he looked like with the naked eye. However, there was a hint of mockery in his voice. It was obvious that he was very dissatisfied with the demon god tribe. Although the demon god tribe and the void human tribe were powerful, this was a joint arena exchange between the 10 great races. If the demon god tribe and the void human tribe were found to have colluded, then they would really be eliminated. Being eliminated was a small matter. The key was, once they were eliminated, all their previous investments would go down the drain. No one would be able to obtain a ranking, so they wouldn't be able to get any cultivation resources back. The key was that in the future, they would likely be ostracized by the other great races. This matter could be big or small. However, if this affected the distribution of key resources, then the two great races would suffer great losses. After the ancient Phoenix tribe spoke, the supreme powerhouse from the demon god tribe also said lightly, "That's right. Demon god tribe, void human tribe, both of you have always been so shameless. Don't let us find any evidence. Now, let's just continue watching the arena battles in peace. There are many outstanding geniuses in the arena battles this time. That's right, Kong Shinmu. I really admire you. Isn't the void human tribe very competitive and likes to take revenge for their tribesmen? Why don't you find a member of the void human tribe to fight and seriously injure him? Let's see if the void human tribe will continue to fight like they did with the demon snake prince." When this was said, the faces of the void human tribe powerhouses turned ashen. However, when a supreme powerhouse spoke, ordinary cultivators didn't dare to speak. At this time, an ethereal female voice came from the side of the void human tribe. It sounded a little dissolute. The void human tribe and the dragon god tribe have never had any conflicts. Little brother Kong Shinmu, you can't listen to this nonsense. I know that the demon god tribe has some plans for you. Demon god tribe? Plans? Kong Shinmu's heart stirred. He knew that the demon god tribe's attitude toward him wasn't clear. It was entirely possible that they had some plans against him. Although he felt that there was no need to listen to the words of the void human tribe, Kong Shinmu had to guard against what the female voice said. Chapter 48:15. Therefore, Kong Shinmu did not act rashly. Currently, there was indeed an expert from the virtual human race who was on a winning streak in the 16 arenas. According to the supreme expert from the demon god race, Kong Shinmu could use his last chance to seriously injure that expert from the virtual human race. Then, he would see if the other experts from the virtual human race would continue to challenge him. However, this was also Kong Shinmu's last chance to challenge. Therefore, he could not casually waste it like this. No matter what, he had to play it safe. Moreover, even if he seriously injured that expert from the virtual human race, it would only make Kong Shinmu offend more people from the virtual human race. There was no other use. Therefore, Kong Shinmu did not act. This seemed to be a pity for the supreme expert from the demon god race. However, he did not say much. After all, Kong Shinmu was a young genius from the dragon god race. He had little to do with the demon god race. Kong Shinmu stayed on the arena where the demon snake prince was. For a moment, no one dared to challenge him. No matter what race the genius experts were from, they now knew of Kong Shinmu's strength. Who would dare to challenge such an expert? There was absolutely no chance of winning. Therefore, the following day basically became someone else's showground. Among them, when Ran Ran went on stage, she also attracted a lot of attention. The main reason was that Ran Ran's dark dragon filth controlling technique had reached the extreme sage realm. This was the dragon martial technique that she had been cultivating recently. When the dark dragon filth controlling technique reached the extreme sage realm, her defense and recovery abilities were further enhanced. On such an arena, even if she fought continuously for a day and a night, Ran Ran's strength would not be exhausted. It could be said that under extreme circumstances, her ability to fight continuously was even stronger than Kong Shinmu's. After all, Kong Shinmu still needed to devour the strength of others to recover, while Ran Ran completely relied on her own recovery. In this aspect, she had fewer restrictions than Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu had been observing the battles around him. Ran Ran's fighting style was relatively simple and violent. Just like Kong Shinmu, she would constantly use defensive methods or speed to exhaust the opponent's strength. When the opponent's strength was almost exhausted, she would launch a counterattack. In this way she could easily win. However, this kind of battle took a long time. There were even many times when Ran Ran couldn't defeat her opponent. It was only after the time it took for an incense stick to burn that she could often injure her opponent a little. According to the severity of injuries, Ran Ran could be said to be the winner because she would always be in peak condition after every fight. There was not a single injury on her body. For supreme experts, this judgment was clear at a glance, so there would not be any disputes. The key was that Ran's tactics really made people a little speechless. Many race cultivators did not believe it and came up to fight with Ran. In the end, they were still exhausted by her strength, or both sides fought back and forth without any gains. In the end, Ran won in peak condition. Unknowingly, Ran had also won 9 times in a row. This made Kong Xinmu quite surprised. This girl was still very powerful. Moreover, she was not as fierce as Kong Xinmu, which made people always feel that it was not as difficult to defeat her as it was to defeat Kong Xinmu. Therefore, there were always people coming up to challenge her. There were 4,000 to 5,000 young 4th-level Emperor stage experts from the 10 major races participating in this arena battle. Even if everyone had 3 chances to challenge, it was not something that could be used up in just 3 days. Therefore, it could be said that there was an endless stream of challengers. For Ran, this was also a form of training when facing experts from other races. This kind of battle was to her heart's content, so much so that the high-level divine spirit dragon martial technique that she cultivated had improved a lot, and even broke through to a higher level, achieving a breakthrough. Breaking through in the midst of a battle was an opportunity, and it could allow a dragon warrior to have a deeper understanding of the dragon martial technique. After this battle, even if Ran's cultivation level and inherited blood essence grade didn't change, her battle prowess had at least doubled compared to before. Many of the details of the battle could be completely grasped at this moment. Her coordination with the various dragon martial skills and the heaven-level Holy Spirit dragon weapon had also become more proficient. In comparison, Ran's battle record was much better than that of Xiao Bai and the others. After all, the recovery ability of the Extreme Saint Realm Dark Dragon Filth technique was too strong. It was as if one would never feel tired. Moreover, the recovery speed after injury was also extremely heaven-defying. Even if one was seriously injured, one could recover to full of vigor in a short period of time. This made countless people envious. This dragon warrior was too strong, wasn't it? The Dark Dragon Filth technique inherited from Lil Bei is indeed very strong. But isn't that the dragon martial technique that Lil Bei left in the Northern Wasteland Dragon Martial Academy? How did this girl learn it? On the side of the dragon gods, the Dragon of Calamity was a handsome man. After seeing Ran enter the battle, he suddenly felt a little strange. The Lil Bei he mentioned was the Northern Wasteland Xing Tianlong, who founded the Northern Wasteland Dragon Martial Academy. The Northern Wasteland Xing Tianlong was famous for cultivating the body-refining dragon martial technique. His divine dragon body had almost reached the level where supreme power could not penetrate it, and the Dark Dragon Filth technique was a recovery-type dragon martial technique that he had cultivated in his early years. This dragon martial technique had always been passed down in the Northern Wasteland Dragon Martial Academy. Unexpectedly, it was now in the hands of Ran. And Ran. First, she was a student of Donghuang Yonggu College. Later, she was a student of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. No matter how one looked at it, she had nothing to do with the Northern Wasteland Dragon Martial Academy. Emperor Shi chuckled and said, "This girl seems to have something to do with an incident that happened in the Northern Wasteland Dragon Martial Academy." Because of that incident, the dean of the Northern Wasteland Dragon Martial Academy was put in confinement for 10 years. It seems that he was released 10 years ago. This girl looks like she is in her 20s, right? Oh, you mean that incident? The Dragon of Calamity suddenly thought of something and said with a sudden realization, "I wouldn't have remembered if you hadn't mentioned it. So, this girl is the daughter of those 2 geniuses? Should be. Her talent is shining now, which shows how stupid the dean was back then." Emperor Shi said with a smile. "This reminds me of Zhou Xiaofeng." Chapter 48:16. In the field, Ran's performance surprised many clans. They didn't expect that there was such a genius in the Dragon Gods clan. As for Ran's combat power, many people in the field saw it clearly. Obviously, Ran's real combat power was not too strong, but she had a very strong ability to fight continuously, and she also had the ability to recover from injuries. This allowed Ran to have an unparalleled status in certain special occasions. For example, in the current arena battle, Ran's ability to fight continuously allowed her to win 9 times in a row in the arena. These 9 consecutive victories suddenly made the name Ran resound among all the practitioners of the 10 major clans present. Including the supreme experts, they all remembered this name. After all, to be able to win 9 times in a row in such an occasion was definitely not a coincidence. The main thing was that Ran's 9 consecutive victories were against all clans, so it was impossible for there to be a situation like the situation with the Demon Snake Prince. It was impossible that all clans colluded with the Dragon God's clan, right? Even if there was collusion, it should not be to challenge Ran, but to challenge Kong Shin-mu. In this way, Kong Shin-mu could win more consecutive victories, and he could be more decisive. All in all, Ran's current personal combat power had now defeated 9 genius experts of various clans in a row, and this had attracted a lot of attention. Even when Emperor Xi and the Dragon of Calamity of Qing Tian talked, they all praised Ran very much. Moreover, the matter of Ran and Kong Shin-mu also made the Dragon of Calamity of Qing Tian even more unhappy with Xueqi. Forget about Ran. She should not have been a student of Donghuang Yonggu College, but should have been a student of the Northern Wasteland Dragon Martial Arts Academy. Just because of the incident that happened more than 10 years ago, 2 top geniuses of the Northern Wasteland Dragon Martial Arts Academy were killed. Who would have thought that the daughters of those 2 peerless geniuses would actually grow to such an extent? According to reason, no matter what, Kong Shin-mu was born and raised in the Yen Dragon Emperor dynasty. Coming from the Yen Dragon Emperor dynasty, he was under the jurisdiction of Donghuang Yonggu College. In the end, such a genius was forced away by Xueqi. This was simply infuriating the Dragon of Calamity. Kong Shin-mu was supposed to be a super genius of the Blue Sky Tribulation Dragon's Holy Land in the future. He might even be able to stand on equal footing with the Blue Sky Tribulation Dragon in the future. But now, he was actually pushed to the 5 extremes Dark Ice Holy Land. Although they were all forces of the Dragon God clan, there were still some differences. For example, Kong Shin-mu was a disciple of the Holy Land of 5 extremes Mysterious Ice. This time, he had obtained a sacred grade of heaven and earth with 9 layers of engravings. The superiors of the Dragon God clan had decided to give this sacred grade of heaven and earth to Emperor Xi of the Holy Land of 5 extremes Mysterious Ice. See, isn't this the difference? So, Xueqi drove away the 2 geniuses, Kong Shin-mu and Ran, which made the Dragon of Calamity extremely depressed. Needless to say, the Dragon of Calamity now knew that the reason why Xueqi targeted Kong Shin-mu was because of a woman. Although that woman was a genius. Could Xueqi be a little more promising? The Dragon of Azure Sky Calamity regretted raising such a fellow. Originally, he thought that it was better to have one more subordinate than one less. After all, Xueqi's cultivation talent was not bad. But now, it seemed that it was better not to have such a flawed guy as his subordinate. The loss of having such a subordinate was not insignificant. Anyway, the Clear Sky Tribulation Dragon was quite depressed now. However, since the matter had been decided, he wouldn't dwell on it too much. He just summed up some things from this incident and used them as guidelines for his behavior in the future. This was the origin of the strong becoming stronger. The strong were able to constantly sum up their mistakes, allowing them to transform from their mistakes and become even stronger. At this moment, the Dragon of Calamity looked at Kong Shin-mu and Ran in the arena with a look of admiration on his face. Of course, he also noticed the performance of the other 4th-level Dragon Emperor students of Donghuang Yonggu College, such as Qin Xiaoye and Zhu Wudi. These 2 were the most outstanding among the students of Donghuang Yonggu College. Although they were not as heaven-defying as Ran and Kong Shin-mu, they were far more powerful than ordinary 4th-level martial emperors. They could basically win more than 3 matches in a row and then leave the arena exhausted, ready to wait for the last opportunity to come. The last opportunity would determine whether all of them could enter the final battle of the top 16, so it was very important. Perhaps supreme experts like Kong Shin-mu and Ran did not care about such a segment and were not too nervous about the final moment. But for ordinary cultivators, the final moment was the most important moment. Kong Shin-mu was also on full alert. He could not let his guard down during the last day. In fact, Kong Shin-mu guessed that there were at least dozens of people waiting beside the arena, waiting for the final moment to come so that they could step into the arena and fight for the position. Obviously, the previous 3 days were a time for everyone to train. Only existences like Kong Shin-mu and Ran, who had a heaven-defying recovery ability, could maintain the position of the champion of the arena. Therefore, many people would choose to challenge at the last moment. Once they could stand firm on the arena, they would eventually enter the top 16 of the tournament. According to Kang Shinmu's current observation and estimation, it seemed like 12 of the 16 arenas had not been challenged. It was as if they had already occupied the arenas and the quota had been decided. But in fact, Kang Shinmu could be sure that at least half of the current champions of the 16 arenas would be replaced after 2 hours. This included Kang Shinmu. No one knew how many experts were hiding in the dark, watching the positions of these champions. But no matter who he faced, Kang Shinmu had to guarantee his position as the champion. He could not afford to lose it. Everyone was gearing up for a fight. As the final moment approached, Kang Shinmu felt that the atmosphere in the surrounding 16 arenas had completely changed. It had become incomparably austere and dignified. At this moment, all the battles in the arenas had stopped. It was like the calm before the storm. Everyone looked at the arena nervously. At some point in time, a Sea God clan powerhouse suddenly barged into the arena and launched an explosive attack at the genius arena lord of the Demon God clan. As the genius powerhouse from the Sea God clan launched an attack, the surrounding arenas finally erupted with waves of attacks. Chapter 48:17. On Ranran's side, it was a tough battle. After she had won 9 times in a row, no one else dared to challenge her. Finally, another expert with the demonic wolf bloodline of the Demon God clan stepped into the arena and charged at Ranran. It was obvious that the Demon God race had suffered a loss at the hands of Kang Shinmu. The Demon Snake Prince, who was a popular candidate for the top 3, had been severely injured by Kang Shinmu and had lost the ability to fight again. Therefore, the Demon God race wanted to get back at them by sending the elite with the Demon Wolf bloodline to challenge Ranran's arena. Clearly, this Demon God clan genius with the Demon Wolf bloodline had a terrifying battle prowess. Furthermore, he was able to restrain Ranran's abilities. The main reason was that his Demon Wolf bloodline contained a power that could make one's blood boil. Once injured, the speed at which one's body recovered would become extremely slow. This way, as long as Ranran was injured once, her hopes of recovering quickly would be dashed. Even the power in her body wouldn't circulate smoothly. This was the Demon God race's revenge on Ranran. After the elite with the Demon Wolf bloodline entered the arena, he launched a torrential barrage of attacks at Ranran. Ranran kept evading the elite's attacks, which were getting fiercer and fiercer. However, the elite quickly used some tricks and unleashed his innate talent. The elite with the Demon Wolf bloodline's blood boiled as he unleashed a top-notch demon weapon and Demon God martial technique. Originally, the elite with the Demon God race's elite thought that he would be able to injure Ranran severely. Even if he couldn't injure her severely, he would be able to prevent her from recovering quickly. Then, he would find a way to defeat her. Unfortunately, he hadn't expected Ranran to unleash the power of her heaven-grade divine spiritual dragon weapon. Her heaven-grade Saint Spirit Dragon weapon was chosen by Kang Shinmu for her. It made up for her lack of sensitivity. It was a heaven-grade Saint Spirit Dragon weapon that contained the power of the void. To her, it wasn't easy to control. However, she could already use its power to travel through the void in a small area. This was not an ability that just anyone could have. Most importantly, she was now the same as Kang Shinmu. It wasn't too difficult for her to travel through the void, provided that the power of her heaven-level Holy Spirit Dragon weapon hadn't been exhausted. Her heaven-level Saint Spiritual Dragon weapon could allow her to teleport through the void at least 100 times. 100 void jumps should be enough to be used in a battle, right? Ranran began to dodge in the arena. No matter how the elite with the Demon Wolf bloodline targeted her and unleashed his strongest attack, she was always one step ahead of him. With the heaven-grade Saint Spirit Dragon weapon's ability to travel through the void, she was able to escape from the opponent's attack. In a short period of time, Ranran constantly maneuvered the heaven-grade Saint Spirit Dragon weapon to dodge in all directions, avoiding the opponent's attack. Moreover, Ranran was constantly familiarizing herself with her heaven-grade Saint Spirit Dragon weapon. This was not only a heaven-grade Saint Spirit Dragon weapon that could travel through the void, but it also had the ability to attack and defend with the power of the void. Ranran directly activated the offensive battle patterns, causing the offensive battle patterns in the heaven-grade Saint Spirit Dragon weapon to be completely activated and added to herself. This caused her comprehension of the power of the void to rise. It was obvious that Ranran was the same as Kang Shinmu. She was actually improving herself in battle. This scene shocked the surrounding geniuses. The dragon gods had produced two monstrous geniuses at the same time. The demon god race genius with the demon wolf bloodline clearly specialized in restraining Ran Ran's recovery ability. However, Ran Ran didn't fight head-on with him at all. She directly dodged the opponent's most fatal attack and consumed his energy. The genius with the demon wolf bloodline couldn't keep up with Ran Ran's movements at all. He could only continuously attack Ran Ran and consume his energy. If this was in the wild, the genius with the demon wolf bloodline might not be so irrational. The key was that the rules of this arena battle were that both sides only had an incense stick's worth of time. After that incense stick's worth of time, the one who was more heavily injured would be the loser. And if both sides weren't injured, then the defending side would be the winner. This was why the genius with the demon wolf bloodline was so anxious. If Ran Ran kept dodging like this, not only would she consume his energy, but she would also be able to ensure his victory. The defending side was originally faced with a continuous battle, so this rule was also reasonable. As long as both sides weren't injured, then the attacking side would lose. This genius with the demon wolf bloodline could be considered to be specially selected by the demon god race to deal with Ran Ran. If he lost, it would definitely be a great loss to the demon god race. Of course, the demon god race wouldn't bet all their treasures on him alone. There might be other arrangements in the future. However, to this genius with the demon wolf bloodline, if he lost, it would mean that his status in the demon god race would definitely plummet. Therefore, he couldn't lose. Therefore, this fellow fought even harder. He wanted to injure Ran Ran, even if it was just a little bit. Unfortunately, Ran Ran didn't give him such a chance. She kept dodging and didn't let her opponent touch her black dragon body. This terrifyingly powerful void comprehension infuriated the genius with the demon wolf bloodline. It wasn't that he couldn't defeat Ran Ran, but that he couldn't hit Ran Ran. Under the rules of this arena battle, he could only be judged as the loser. How displeased was he? The time it took to burn a jaw stick was up. The genius with the demon wolf bloodline was furious. He even condensed two demon wolf doppelgangers and released his most powerful attack in the arena. Unfortunately, Ran Ran didn't dodge. Instead, she charged towards the body of the demon wolf bloodline. Chaotic 10,000 Dragons Heavenly Lock, Dark Phoenix Heart Extermination. These two dragon techniques that she had comprehended to a relatively high realm erupted at this moment. The terrifying power directly bombarded the body of the demon wolf bloodline. This sudden attack stunned the opponent. Although he instinctively used defensive techniques, he still wasn't able to completely block Ran Ran's attack. Therefore, this genius with the demon wolf bloodline was actually blasted out of the arena by Ran Ran. If the time it took to burn a jaw stick was up and neither side was able to injure the other, the genius with the demon wolf bloodline would probably be able to accept it. However, right now, he was suddenly blasted out of the arena by Ran Ran's sneak attack before the time it took to burn a jaw stick was up. This meant that he had completely failed. Chapter 48-21. While Ran Ran was vigilantly fighting, the other hidden experts of the various races also began to make their moves. There were also many experts from the 4 dragon martial academies of the dragon gods. For example, Liang Xiao went up to fight in the last 2 hours. The opponent he chose was a young genius from the Devil Leader clan who had already defeated 4 people in a row in the arena. This young genius from the Devil Leader clan's battle strength was not low, but after his previous 4 battles, Liang Xiao had already gained a considerable understanding of his fighting style. Most importantly, Liang Xiao's power was somewhat of a counter to this young genius from the Devil Fiend tribe. Let's go! Liang Xiao was not afraid, and he directly rushed up to the arena. He had already gone up once before, but his performance had been average. Of course, it was not because his battle strength was inferior, but because he had only gone up to experience it a little. In fact, he had not shown his true strength at all. Even so, he had still defeated 2 opponents. In any case, the final moment was approaching, and he had to use his strongest strength. When Liang Xiao went up, Xiao Bai and Xiao Yuhua also set their targets and rushed up to the arena. Now, there were only 2 hours left until the final moment. If each battle lasted for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, then there would be 4 battles left. 4 battles in 2 hours. This wasn't a high frequency of battles. For Xiao Bai, Xiao Yuhua, and Liang Xiao, their battle strength was completely enough to support them in these 4 high-intensity battles. They did not need to worry too much about their strength being exhausted, because before going up to fight, they had each taken some elixirs that could restore their strength. These elixirs were very powerful, and it was common knowledge that the effects of such elixirs would not be released in a short period of time. In the next 2 hours, the elixirs would be released continuously in their bodies, which meant that they could continuously restore their strength in the next 2 hours. According to the rules, elixirs were not allowed in the arena, but they had taken elixirs outside the arena, so this was not a violation of the rules. It was clear that this was an unspoken rule among the major races. At this point in time, practically all the geniuses of the various races who wanted to make the final dash would consume some recovery medicinal pills before entering the arena. As for Xiao Bai, Liang Xiao, and Xiao Yuhua, the timing of their appearance was very precise. When they appeared, the other restless fellows didn't even have time to react. In the end, they directly chose 3 arenas and went on stage. Moreover, after they went on stage, they even communicated with their opponents. "Hey, handsome guy from the Devil Leader clan. I'm from the Dragon God clan. Why don't we take a break before we fight? I can see that you're quite tired. You should rest first. When it's about time, we'll decide the winner in one go. How about it?" Liang Xiao said in a carefree manner. The genius cultivator from the Devil Fiend clan felt that what he said was right. After all, he hadn't fully recovered yet. If he fought now and ended the battle quickly, he would have to face another opponent, so there was no need. He glanced at Liang Xiao and nodded lightly. Then, he rested while keeping his guard up against Liang Xiao. In his opinion, there was no need for Liang Xiao to waste time with him. The only possibility was that Liang Xiao wanted to launch a sneak attack while he was resting. If that was the case, he had to be careful of Liang Xiao. But what he didn't know was that Liang Xiao's actions were completely for his own sake. He also didn't want to face too many battles, so he was directly stalling for time with his opponent. In a situation where both sides were willing to waste time, they naturally came to an agreement. Both sides rested on the arena. When half the time for an incense stick to burn had passed, the genius from the Devil Leader clan finally couldn't bear it anymore. If he didn't fight and Liang Xiao was an agile type, he would be judged to be the loser if he couldn't injure him in a short time. Therefore, the genius from the Devil Leader clan finally attacked. At the same time, Xiao Bai, Xiao Yuhua, and Xiao Yuhua also did the same. Their opponents also listened to their suggestion and waited for a while to fight. But almost at this time, the battle directly erupted. The 3 opponents of the 3 had more or less recovered, so they attacked the 3 of them. Unfortunately, the 3 of them finally used their full strength. Whether it was Xiao Bai, Liang Xiao, or Xiao Yuhua, they were all extremely strong now. They each used the high-grade Divine Spirit Dragon martial skills they cultivated, and then used the heaven-grade Divine Spirit Dragon weapons. The combination of the 2 instantly exploded with terrifying power. Although it wasn't their strongest battle strength, they directly attacked and injured their opponents while they were off guard. Including Liang Xiao's Devil Leader clan opponent, the 3 foreign race geniuses' defensive barriers were all shattered, and they were injured. Immediately afterward, Liang Xiao and the other 2 used almost the same method to dodge. Their opponents hadn't lost the ability to fight, so they naturally wouldn't directly give up and leave the arena. But they were already injured, so as long as Xiao Bai and Liang Xiao could delay until the incense stick's time was up, they would be able to guarantee their victory. This was the last battle before the final moment arrived, so the 3 of them used some small tricks to allow themselves to occupy an advantageous position on the arena earlier. At the same time, they also saved themselves the energy they expended in the fierce battle. After an incense stick's time, their opponents couldn't catch up to them, nor could they injure them. Thus, the 3 of them successfully became the arena masters of the 3 arenas. When the time was up, the 3 opponents were directly expelled from the arena by the power of the arena because their injuries were more serious than the 3 of them. Immediately afterward, other opponents directly rushed into the arena and began the next battle. In a situation where the final moment was about to arrive, because there were many people fighting over the arena, it was very difficult to fight for an opportunity to go on the arena. Originally, people were not allowed to enter within 100 feet of the arena. Therefore, many people were waiting outside the 100-feet radius. At the end of each battle, there would be at least 10 geniuses from different races waiting around each arena. They would then rush towards the arenas as fast as they could. In the end, only one person would be able to enter the arenas and obtain the chance to attack. Therefore, The competition was very fierce. Just now, Xiao Bai and the other two had taken advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention to them to directly enter the arena, so that no one could react. No one wanted to go on the arena too early, because if it was too early, it meant that they would have to experience more battles before they could become the final arena master. That could be said to be extremely difficult. If 1 or 2 battles ended too quickly, it was possible that they would have to experience 5 or 6 battles, or even more, to become the final arena master. Therefore, the timing that Liang Xiao and the others had calculated was just right. Chapter 48-22. In addition to Xiao Bai, Liang Xiao, and Xiao Yuhua, there were others who also made their moves. On the side of the dragon gods, Zhu Wudi and Qin Xiaoye did not have the same combat power and confidence as Xiao Bai and the other two, so they did not get the right to attack the ring first. When they wanted to go up, the ring they were staring at had already been attacked by others. There were many geniuses from the top 10 races, and they were all mixed together. It was not easy to attack the ring. Among the experts who participated in the battle, there were not many people who had the power of the void. There might be more people from the virtual human clan, but in general, the number of practitioners who could travel through the void was less than 1%. So most of the time, it was a competition to see who was faster to enter the ring. Kong Shinmu's ring was the quietest. His combat power was the strongest, and his strength was absolutely overwhelming. Didn't you see that the demon snake prince was killed by Kong Shinmu with one move? Moreover, he was seriously injured and lost the qualification this time. So among the 16 rings, the other rings were all in fierce battles, and only Kong Shinmu's ring was unchallenged. This made Kong Shinmu quite puzzled, but he was happy to be idle, so he directly observed the battle situation of Xiao Bai and Ran Ran. This move is not bad. Very good. I hurt my opponent again. As long as I can buy time, it will be fine. Kong Shinmu observed the battle of Xiao Bai and the others, and soon found that the situation was good. Whether it was Xiao Bai, Xiao Yuhua, Ran Ran, or Liang Xiao, the 4 of them fought very steadily. Facing all kinds of opponents from different races, they used steady methods, first detecting the opponent's strength, and then slowly defeating the opponent. They were not anxious at all. At this time, they could not be anxious. Anyway, after defeating one opponent, there would be more opponents. At this point in the arena battle, it was a test of one's endurance. For the geniuses outside the arena, it was a test of their speed. If they could get on the arena first, they would have the opportunity to challenge their opponents in the arena. There were not many opportunities left. In the end, there were at most 4 or 5 matches left on each arena. Moreover, as time passed, many people became more and more anxious. It was very likely that they wouldn't even have the chance to take advantage of the situation in the end. Many people knew the rules of this arena battle. The later one went up, the more advantageous it would be. However, the more time passed, the more people would fight for the opportunity to go on stage. From another perspective, only the strongest people would have the opportunity to fight for the advantage of going on stage at the end. Those who were weaker or slower would have no chance at all if they did not go on stage earlier. Many people could only watch helplessly as others snatched the opportunity to go on stage, while they themselves were blocked outside the protective barrier of the arena. If he couldn't get the chance to go on stage, he could only watch helplessly. Zhu Wudi and Qin Xiaoye stared at their respective arenas. Fortunately, they managed to get a chance to go on stage. However, whether it was Zhu Wudi or Qin Xiaoye, they were facing extremely strong opponents. Even with the help of Kong Shinmu's heaven-grade divine dragon weapon, their own strength was still slightly inferior. After all, they did not cultivate any high-grade divine dragon martial techniques, so the level of their dragon martial techniques was slightly lower than Xiao Bai's. Therefore, their direct combat strength was slightly weaker than Xiao Bai's. This also meant that after they went on stage and defeated an opponent, the 2 of them had already suffered heavy injuries. This put them in a passive position. After all, they did not have any means of rapid recovery. In this kind of situation, as long as the next person in the ring slowly delayed and dodged the attacks, they would not be able to defeat their opponent. In fact, this was the case. The genius cultivators of the 16 major clans competed for the positions in the 16 arenas. In other words, only 1 out of 100 geniuses could stand in the ring until the end. Zhu Wudi and Qin Xiaoye's strength was still a little lacking, and the last ones to attack the ring were the super experts who had hidden until the end. None of these super experts were much weaker than the Snake Demon Prince. They were all the super elite geniuses of the 4th level Emperor stage, and each of them had top-notch combat strength. These people rushed into the ring as fast as they could. Then, they used their strongest combat strength to defeat their opponents. Not only were Zhu Wudi and Qin Xiaoye directly delayed, but they were also judged to have lost and had to leave the ring. Even Xiao Bai and the others were now in an extremely difficult and fierce battle. They had to be careful not to get injured in the battle. Otherwise, it was very likely that they would have to leave the ring in the next round. At this time, Kong Xinmu observed that Xiao Bai, Ran Ran, Xiao Yuhua, and Liang Xiao were all in a difficult battle. Their combat strength was originally not at the peak of the 4th level Emperor stage like Kong Xinmu. Although they had heaven-ranked Divine Spirit Dragon weapons and cultivated high-grade Divine Spirit Dragon martial techniques, their opponents were also at the same level. However, it was obvious that the 4 of them had rich combat experience. In the past year or two, they had experienced a lot in the void battlefield of the Dragon Martial Continent. They had rich combat experience and could completely deal with many different opponents. At this moment, although the ring was surrounded by danger, they finally stabilized their footing. There were people who challenged them one after another, and they were all injured by them within a limited time. Although they did not completely defeat their opponents, as long as they were not injured and their opponents were injured, it was enough. In this ring battle, as long as they could delay the time, they would be able to win the ring battle. Therefore, among the 16 rings, no one dared to challenge Kong Xinmu's ring. But among the other 15 rings, there were actually 4 rings that were firmly controlled by the Dragon God clan. Even the geniuses and experts of the various clans did not have a good way to deal with Xiao Bai and the other 3. It should be known that the head-on combat strength of Xiao Bai and the other 3 were basically at the level of the Demon Snake Prince. Even if they faced the Demon Snake Prince, it was hard to say who would win and who would lose. How could it be so easy for others to defeat them? Even if they just wanted to injure them, it would not be an easy task. In fact, it might even be extremely difficult. They were too cautious. Everyone would rather not injure their opponents and pay attention to protecting themselves. During this period, there was an accident. Liang Xiao did not handle it well and was injured by a genius expert of the Star God clan. The next match was against a genius from the Void Human clan. The genius from the Void Human clan directly avoided a head-on battle. After the battle was over, Liang Xiao's injuries had not fully recovered, and he was immediately judged to have lost. This could be considered an accident. However, Liang Xiao had long been prepared for this kind of accident. Chapter 48-23. Liang Xiao's actions stunned all the prodigies from the various clans who wanted to fight for the ring. How could this guy be so shameless? This guy must have calculated the time. In fact, this was indeed the case. Judging from the time, the next battle should be the last one. After this battle, the final moment would arrive. The remaining cultivators in the ring would be the top 16. Liang Xiao had been planning ever since he was injured. He knew that once he was injured, his opponent in the next battle would try to stall for time. As long as he could stall for 30 minutes, he would be declared the loser. Liang Xiao didn't think that this was a bad thing. Instead, it was suitable for him to obtain the final victory. At the last moment, he used his dragon blood to form a doppelganger. This divine dragon doppelganger chased after the virtual human tribe prodigy and confused the other prodigies from the various clans who wanted to fight for the ring. When the time was up, the prodigies from the various clans who wanted to fight for the ring were calculating the time in their hearts. However, before the time was up, Liang Xiao voluntarily retreated from the ring. It was his divine dragon body that was hidden in the ring. Then, the doppelganger that was fighting fiercely in the ring dissipated. This scene dumbfounded the surrounding people. They didn't know what was going on and thought that Liang Xiao had hidden himself. However, Liang Xiao's divine dragon body immediately appeared and charged back into the ring. He had used one chance to attack the ring 2 days ago and had just used it again. Therefore, he only had one last chance left. The prodigies from the various clans didn't expect this turn of events at all. Then, Liang Xiao returned to the ring. This time, he had recovered quite well. He directly attacked the virtual human tribe prodigy. It had to be said that Liang Xiao's overall combat strength had become very terrifying. Among the 4th stage martial emperor prodigies, although his combat strength wasn't as strong as Kong Xinmu's, he was still comparable to the Snake Demon Prince. Therefore, Liang Xiao used all his strength to deal with the virtual human tribe prodigy. The terrifying power of the dragon blood exploded. No matter how hard the virtual human tribe prodigy tried to hide, he couldn't escape Liang Xiao's attack. The void human race genius expert even used the void black hole dragon martial technique to defend against Liang Xiao while defending against Liang Xiao's dragon blood explosion. However, Liang Xiao's attacks were too ferocious. He didn't even care where the genius of the void human tribe was. He directly attacked the entire arena. The innate power of the dragon blood exploded in the arena. It kept erupting, making it impossible for the genius of the void human tribe to dodge. Of course, this genius expert of the void human tribe also had some trump cards. For example, he could hide his entire body in the void. No matter how Liang Xiao attacked, he wouldn't be able to hurt him. However, this fellow's ability to hide in the void was naturally inferior to Kong Shinmu's. Even Kong Shinmu could only hide in the void for a short period of time, let alone this genius powerhouse of the virtual human tribe. He could only hide for a moment. After a while, he had no choice but to come out of the void and use a defensive divine void martial skill to defend against Liang Xiao's attacks. He wanted to counterattack, but Liang Xiao didn't give him such a chance. The 9 heavenly dragon blood explosion technique, dragon blood meteor explosion technique, dragon blood exploding pearl, and the heaven-grade divine dragon weapon that Kong Shinmu had recently prepared for him were all unleashed by him. The strongest explosive power of the dragon blood was released in the arena. Previously, in order to prevent himself from getting injured, Liang Xiao didn't use these self-harming techniques. However, this time, this was already his last battle against the genius expert of the void human tribe. Therefore, he was able to erupt with his full strength and use it to fight against his opponent. The arena that Liang Xiao was in was already filled with the explosive power of the innate power of the dragon blood. This shocked the surrounding dragon martial artists. This dragon martial artist was fighting with no regard for his own life. Under such a crazy and indiscriminate attack, Liang Xiao was the first to be injured. However, the genius expert of the void human tribe couldn't avoid it either. Soon, his defense was broken, and he was seriously injured by Liang Xiao. Liang Xiao's situation was relatively stable. In the end, there should be a place for Liang Xiao among the remaining practitioners in the 16 arenas. However, Xiao Bai, Ran Ran, and Xiao Yuhua weren't as crazy. Ran Ran's defense and recovery abilities were very strong. Her fighting style was always steady and steady. She had already defeated several opponents in a row, and her body was still in peak condition. She used all her strength to deal with each opponent seriously. In any case, when an incense stick's time was up, her injuries would always be much lighter than her opponents'. The dark dragon filth controlling technique of the extreme sage realm was simply too powerful. No matter what level the dragon technique was, as long as it was cultivated to the extreme sage realm, it would have a rather heaven-defying effect. Of course, the higher the level of the dragon technique, the more difficult it was to cultivate to the extreme sage realm. For example, Kong Shinmu's 9th stage extreme Dao horseshoe dragon explosion was not something that could be cultivated to the extreme sage realm in a short period of time. In fact, it might not even be achieved in a few years. Relying on the extreme sage realm dark dragon filth controlling technique, Ran Ran was also able to stabilize one of the 16 arenas. In comparison, the battle between Xiao Bai and Xiao Yuhua was filled with more artistic value. Xiao Bai's innate ability was of the ice attribute. Her 10,000 ice dragon pagoda suppressing mountains and rivers could completely control her opponent for more than an incense stick's time. Therefore, as long as she found an opportunity to use the 10,000 ice dragon pagoda suppressing mountains and rivers to control her opponent, she could completely guarantee her victory. She relied on this method of control to make her opponent unable to resist when facing her. Of course, occasionally, when she encountered an opponent that could break through her control, she would use the heaven-rank Saint Dragon weapon to once again unleash the power of the 10,000 ice dragon pagoda suppressing mountains and rivers to suppress her opponent. The 10,000 ice dragon pagoda suppressing mountains and rivers that she executed became stronger and stronger, making people unable to determine where her limits were. Initially, she condensed 33 ice dragon pagoda to suppress her opponent, but as the battle progressed, the number of ice dragon pagoda she condensed increased from 33 to 45, then 60, then 77, and finally 99. The more ice dragon pagoda she condensed, the stronger her suppressive power became, making it impossible for her opponent to break free from the suppression of the ice dragon pagoda. Many people felt that 99 Ice Dragon Pagoda was her limit, but very quickly, she condensed 120 Ice Dragon Pagoda, and even 145 Ice Dragon Pagoda. Too terrifying. Chapter 48-26. Until the end, Xiaobai did not use her most powerful technique. Ice Dragon 10,000 Pagoda suppressing mountains and rivers. To what extent had she cultivated this high-grade Holy Spirit Dragon martial skill? No one knew. Furthermore, the top-grade heaven-level Holy Spirit Dragon weapon was something that even some genius cultivators of the other races might not possess. The combination of these two allowed Xiaobai to defeat 4 opponents in a row in the arena and successfully stand at the end. Following that was the Laughing Flower. The strength of the Laughing Flower was a bit more domineering. During the battle, it could be said that the entire arena was filled with flames, and the Phoenix Dance burning the 9 heavens was still her main attack method. As long as this move could hit the opponent, it could weaken the opponent's fire attribute resistance, and the following attack could cause more lethality to the opponent. Most opponents would condense a defensive barrier when facing an attack, and only a few who were proficient in movement techniques would try to dodge. Therefore, to the Laughing Flower, she would constantly use the Phoenix Dance burning the 9 heavens to attack the opponent, making it impossible for the opponent to retaliate. Then, at the right time, she would directly use her high-grade Holy Spirit Dragon martial skill. At this time, the opponent's fire attribute resistance would already be weakened to the extreme. With one move, she could break the opponent's defensive barrier and injure the opponent. Even if it was only a slight injury, the Laughing Flower had already established her victory. This was because during this period of time, after Kong Xinmu left, they had also mastered a lot of defensive methods to deal with the enemy's attacks. Of course, they did not cultivate the defensive type of Dragon martial skill, but through the cultivation of the Movement Dragon martial skill, Illusion Dragon martial skill, etc., to confuse and dodge the opponent. This way, they would not be hit by the opponent's attack. This kind of Dragon martial skill had a more obvious effect when cultivated. Unlike the defensive Dragon martial skill, if one did not cultivate to a high level, it would not have a strong defensive ability, which was equivalent to not cultivating at all. In this way, whether it was the Laughing Flower, Liang Xiao, or Ran Ran, they could fight more easily. With their powerful attack ability, they could suppress the opponent's strength to a certain extent, and the opponent's limited strength to counterattack was unable to threaten their safety. Under such conditions, the Laughing Flower and the others successfully stood on the stage. With the characteristics of the Phoenix Dance burning the 9 heavens and the super-destructive power of the high-grade Holy Spirit Dragon martial skill, Laughing Flower directly persisted on the stage until the end. So far, the 3 genius dragon martial artists of the Dragon Gods had become one of the top 16 in the arena, and all 3 were students of the Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy. In addition, whether it was the Dragon Emperor Dragon Martial Warriors among the common people, or the 4th-layer Emperor Dragon Martial Artists from the hidden Dragon Martial families, no one could stay on the stage. There was only one 4th-layer Dragon Monarch Dragon Martial Artist from the hidden Dragon Martial Artist clan. He seemed to be from the hidden Dragon Martial Artist clan's Gu family, and his name was Gu Litian. This person had not grown up in the martial dragon continent. Instead, he had displayed extremely high talent in his early years and had been sent to the Dragon God's Great World to cultivate. When he had been in the Dragon God's Great World, Gu Litian seemed to have been in the 5 Extremes Dark Ice Holy Land. This person did not grow up in the Dragon Martial continent. Instead, he showed great talent in his early years and was sent to the Dragon God's world to cultivate. When he was in the Dragon God's world, Gu Litian seemed to be in the holy lands of 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice. Dragon martial artists of the hidden Dragon Martial Artists, the Gu family, belonged to the Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy in the Dragon Martial continent. The Dragon martial artists of the Gu family joined the Dragon Martial Academy. Gu Litian's battle prowess was also very strong, and he couldn't be underestimated. However, it could be seen that he seemed to have some enmity towards Jiang Xinwu. Of course, Jiang Xinwu didn't really care about him. Gu Litian's combat ability was also very strong and could not be ignored. However, it was obvious that he seemed to be hostile towards Kong Xinmu. Of course, Kong Xinmu did not pay much attention to him. After all, at this time, no one had come to challenge his stage. There should not be anyone coming to challenge him until the end. However, at this time, outside the stage that Kong Xinmu was in, a huge black shadow suddenly landed on the stage he was in. With a loud bang, a huge black shadow appeared in front of him. Kong Xinmu was very familiar with such a black shadow. a genius cultivator of the demon god race. A member of the demon god race had transformed into the body of a demon god and appeared in front of Kong Shin-mu. This demon god's body was that of a 16-winged heavenly demon god. Most importantly, Kong Shin-mu felt a familiar aura from this demon god race cultivator. It can't be. Kong Shin-mu's expression became strange. The 16-winged heavenly demon god's body in front of him looked slender and seemed to be a woman. Moreover, the aura on her body was very familiar to Kong Shin-mu. It was the aura of the demon god race's little princess, Xueqi. However, Xueqi should not have reached the 4th level of the martial emperor realm yet, right? The 16-winged heavenly demon god's body in front of him gave off the aura of a 4th-level martial emperor. Logically, Xueqi should not have been able to improve so quickly. If she had this speed of improvement, she should have been a demon emperor the first time he saw her. But at that time, Xueqi was only a low-level demon king. She was far from the 4th level of the martial emperor realm. What's going on? Is it her? Kong Shin-mu could not help but ask the demon god ancestor in his mind. From the bloodline, it should be. The demon god ancestor's consciousness also seemed uncertain. What do you mean by should be? Can't you recognize Xueqi? Kong Shin-mu was a little depressed. I really can't recognize her. I'll be honest with you. From the aura, the so-called demon god race cultivators who have inherited my bloodline are exactly the same in my eyes. Even if there are some small differences between them, I can't recognize them. The demon god ancestor transmitted his thoughts. Think about it. For a god like me, how can I distinguish the difference between 2 ants? Kong Shin-mu, even you can't tell the difference between 2 ants, right? Forget it, forget it. Kong Shin-mu could not refute the demon god ancestor's words. He could only focus on the slender body of the 16-winged heavenly demon in front of him. You are Xueqi? Kong Shin-mu could not help but ask in a low voice. However, Jiang Shenwu didn't react at all. Only the corners of the devil god's mouth curled up slightly, and then his entire body suddenly exploded out. The pitch-black devilish energy on his entire body condensed into 3 black beams of light that swept towards Jiang Shenwu. Kong Shin-mu felt that the other party was not Xueqi, but he really did not want to fight with the demon god race. If the other party was Xueqi, he naturally could not fight with her. And if the other party was not Xueqi, it was not convenient for him to fight with the demon god race. After all, they might be on the same side in the future. Therefore, after Jiang Shenwu observed the situation in the other arenas, when the 16-winged sky fiend celestial launched an attack on him, he immediately flew out of the arena in his black dragon form. He left the arena voluntarily, choosing to give up. Chapter 48-28. Kong Shin-mu did not fight with the demon god clan cultivator that he suspected to be Xueqi. He thought about it and felt that there was a possibility that this 16-winged sky demon god was Xueqi. Hence, there was no need for him to fight head-on. In any case, even if Kong Shin-mu gave up on this arena, he still had one more chance to attack. Hence, he gave up on this arena and traveled through the void. The next moment, he appeared on another arena that had just finished its battle. In this arena, a genius cultivator of the demon god clan had defeated his opponent. Before he had time to rest, he saw a black divine dragon traversing through the void and appearing in the void outside the arena, flying directly onto the arena. Kong Shin-mu's speed was too fast. He was so fast that the surrounding cultivators, who were fighting to rush onto the arena, did not have time to react before Kong Shin-mu beat him to it. There was only half an incense stick's time left. If any random cultivator came to challenge this demon god clan genius, and there was no clear winner, the demon god clan genius would win. After all, he was the defending party. However, when Kong Shin-mu appeared in front of him, the demon god clan genius's mood plummeted. Originally, he had the chance to successfully defend his arena and become one of the top 16. But now, the person who had appeared in front of him was actually Kong Shin-mu. Kong Shin-mu was the only powerful existence in this arena who could crush everyone else. Once Kong Shin-mu appeared, not to mention there was only half an incense stick's time left. Even if there was only a moment left, he might be defeated by Kong Shin-mu. Why was Kong Shin-mu suddenly on this arena? The demon god clan genius glanced at the arena that Kong Shin-mu had originally been on and saw a 16-winged sky demon god on that arena. He also seemed to be dumbfounded. He had not expected Kong Shinmu to run away. What's going on? This genius of the demon god clan possessed the bloodline of the berserk shark of the deep sea. The cultivators of the demon god clan with this bloodline mainly relied on their physical bodies to fight. The defensive ability of their demonic bodies was extremely strong, and they possessed a defensive strength that made people despair. However, he did not feel that he could withstand Kong Shinmu's attack. Of course, he could not directly admit defeat to Kong Shinmu. When Kong Shinmu appeared, he had no time to recover from the previous battle. He could only rush toward Kong Shinmu as fast as he could. The deep-sea mad shark bloodline power condensed into a terrifying endless whirlwind that covered his entire demonic body. The bloodline of the deep-sea mad shark was to use the power of the endless whirlwinds to temper its demonic body. At this moment, this person had already erupted with all his strength. The endless whirlwinds wrapped around the demonic body of the deep-sea mad shark and swept towards Jiang Shenwu. With a loud bang, he hit Kong Shinmu's black dragon body. This was the demon god clan genius' most powerful attack. However, the deep-sea mad shark bloodline inheritor was disappointed to find that Kong Shinmu's black dragon body did not waver under his full attack. It was intact. Kong Shinmu had released the divine dragon tyrant body art's defensive stance. His defensive ability had reached an extremely high level. It was not something that this guy could break. Then, Kong Shinmu's sevenfold horn dragon explosion swept out and exploded around the deep-sea mad shark's body. The terrifying power forced the genius of the demon god clan to retreat. Following that, a continuous stream of hornless dragon explosions appeared around him. Again and again, the demon god clan genius, whose forte was defense, felt dizzy. The deep-sea frenzy shark's body also started to bleed. He was injured. Kong Shinmu's attack was too terrifying. When he launched his attack, Kong Shinmu switched the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body Art's defensive stance to the offensive stance. He also used the Snow Wind Dragon Stone. The Snow Wind Dragon Stone was only an Earth-grade divine spiritual dragon weapon. However, when used by Kong Shinmu, its destructive power was shocking. This was mainly because Kong Shinmu's offensive power was too strong. Although the quality of the dragon weapon was average, it allowed his overall offensive power to reach the peak of others. Moreover, under Kong Shinmu's continuous attacks, the demon god clan genius had no room to dodge or counterattack. When the time for half an incense stick to burn was over, Kong Shinmu directly blasted the demon god clan genius out of the arena. This genius from the demon god clan who inherited the deep-sea mad shark clan had already defeated 2 opponents in this arena. Furthermore, both of them were top geniuses who came to the arena to win. It could be seen that the strength of his physical body had reached a certain level. Unfortunately, under Kong Shinmu's attacks, this fellow had no room to resist and was blasted out of the arena. The final moment had arrived. Kong Shinmu hovered in the air above the arena and looked at the arena he had just been in. He saw that the 16-winged sky demon god was also looking at him. The beautiful eyes on the sky demon god's body seemed to be a little curious. This fellow doesn't look like Xueqi. Kong Shinmu felt a headache coming on. Although from a strategic point of view, there was no loss for him to directly withdraw from the arena, such a move would still be somewhat suspicious. Why was it equivalent to admitting defeat to a demon god clan cultivator? To the dragon gods and the other races, this was something worth studying. There was no doubt that on the surface, Kong Shinmu had no reason to admit defeat to the demon god clan cultivator. Some people guessed that Kong Shinmu might have made some secret deal with the demon god clan, right? If that was the case, it was possible that Kong Shinmu would give up the position of arena master to the demon god clan cultivator at the last moment. However, people soon discovered that the 16-winged sky demon god had extremely terrifying combat power. After Jiang Shenwu left that arena, some genius cultivators from various races who couldn't find an opportunity in the other arenas flew directly to that arena to challenge the 16-winged Skyfiend Celestial of the Fiend Celestial race. Just as Kong Shinmu defeated the deep-sea mad shark clan genius, the 16-winged sky demon god had already defeated 2 opponents who dared to challenge her. They were from the Talisman Water race and the 1,000-winged snake race. Moreover, they were all defeated by her in one move. This shocked all the surrounding races. The demon god royal family, who had inherited the legacy of the 16-winged heavenly demon god, seemed to have extremely terrifying combat power. They were much stronger than the demon snake prince and were not far from Jiang Shenwu. They were all top-notch 4th-level Emperor-level cultivators. Could it be that Kong Shinmu had seen through her strength? Chapter 48-30. No one knew if there was any deal between Kong Shinmu and the Demon God clan. But no matter what, the result was already out. On the 16 arenas, almost every clan had at least one person occupying it. Of course, there were 2 clans, including the Star God clan and the Sea God clan, that no one could occupy an arena. A total of 8 clans' genius practitioners occupied all 16 arenas. This made the supreme experts of the Star God clan and the Sea God clan almost die of anger. However, the supreme experts were all experienced and knowledgeable, and they would not lose their composure because of such a small matter. And for the supreme experts, the most important event was the next 3 days of the Dragon Emperor Tutors arena battles. Therefore, losing the current battle was not too bad. As long as they could get some results, it would be fine. No one from the Star God clan and the Sea God clan could stand on the arena. But the Dragon God clan unexpectedly had 6 geniuses occupying an arena. Among them were Kong Shinmu, Xiao Bai, Ran Ran, Liang Xiao, Xiao Yuhua, and Gu Litian from the Hidden Dragon clan. Logically speaking, before this arena battle reached the end, no one had expected such a situation. Didn't the Dragon God clan only have the dragon martial artists from the dragon martial continent participating? How could there be so many powerful geniuses? In the area of the 4th level of the Emperor stage, there were 6 of them standing on the arena, and almost every one of them had consecutively defeated 4 or 5 opponents from other clans. This meant that the Dragon God clan occupied 6 arenas, and the remaining 10 arenas were occupied by the other 7 clans. The Demon God clan had 2 arenas for their people, the Ancient Phoenix clan had 2 arenas for them, and the Demon God clan had 2 arenas for their people. As for the other 4 clans, they only had 1 arena for their people. After the results were out, all the practitioners present were whispering. Some could not believe such a result. The Dragon God clan had such a powerful force in the Dragon Martial Continent? The dragon martial artists of the Dragon Martial Continent who knew about all this also felt that it was a little unbelievable, because all 6 dragon martial artists actually belonged to the faction of Emperor Xi's Dragon Martial Academy. Even Gu Litian from the secluded dragon family belonged to the 5 Extremes Dark Ice Holy Land and had come down from there. In a sense, Gu Litian was also from the Martial Dragon Continent. That was why he could participate in this battle. Gu Litian was currently at the 4th layer of the Martial Emperor realm. He wasn't related to the Gu family of the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice City. He was a descendant of the hidden Gu family of the Martial Dragon Continent. Within the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land, he was one of the more famous explorers of the unparalleled ruins. Before the top 16 were decided, everyone still had to rest for 2 hours. Hence, the powerhouses standing in the arena all retreated to their respective spectator stands. Gu Litian took this opportunity to fly over to Kong Shinmu. He had transformed into the form of a thunder divine dragon and arrived before Kong Shinmu. His pair of divine dragon eyes were somewhat provocative as he said, "Kong Shinmu, your strength is indeed not bad." It could be seen that Gu Litian had some enmity towards Kong Shinmu. However, Kong Shinmu did not know why. "You are not bad yourself." Kong Shinmu habitually replied politely. "See you at the final battle." After Gu Litian said this, he flew away and did not return with Kong Shinmu. At this time, Liang Xiao, Ran Ran, and the other 2 came to Kong Shinmu's side. "Who is that fellow? He looks very arrogant." Liang Xiao looked at Gu Litian's back view and was obviously a little unhappy with that fellow. "I don't know. He is a member of the reclusive Gu family. However, he has recently been groomed in the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land." Kong Shinmu was also puzzled. He did not know how he had offended Gu Litian. Soon, the 5 of them returned to the spectator stands. Emperor Xi's mystical dragon came to receive them and nodded at Gu Litian. After Emperor Xi's mystical dragon's explanation, Kong Shinmu and the others quickly understood what kind of identity Gu Litian had. Gu Litian had a special identity in the 5 Extremes Mysterious Ice Holy Land. He was a supreme relic explorer. He had explored 3 basic relic sites and had gained a lot from each of them. Most importantly, he was at the 4th level of the Emperor class. His strength was considered rather strong and was almost at the peak of the 4th level. Those 3 basic relic sites had allowed him to gain many good items and spoils of war. Hence, He had a good status in the Five Extremes' mysterious Ice Holy Land. Even Emperor Xi's mystical dragon thought highly of him. Of course, Gu Litian was too arrogant. Emperor Xi's mystical dragon did not like him very much. Gu Litian had obtained many things from the 3 basic relic sites. Although he had not obtained a heaven and earth sacred grade item, he had obtained many materials that could be transformed into dragon weapons. He had also obtained some special cultivation resources. It was a pity that even though he had explored 3 basic relic sites, he could not compare to Kong Xinmu, who had only explored 1 basic relic site and obtained a heaven and earth sacred grade item. This time, Gu Litian happened to be recuperating from his injuries. After coming out from the basic relic site, his injuries were not light. He had gained some insights and had been in seclusion until recently. In the end, he found out that someone had obtained a heaven and earth sacred grade item with 9 layers of inscriptions from the basic relic site. This made him very angry. He thought that if he had gone, he would definitely have been able to obtain this heaven and earth sacred grade item with 9 layers of inscriptions, right? Wouldn't there be no need for Kong Xinmu then? Of course, he had heard that the evil prince had also appeared during the exploration of the basic relic site. Such a person made him rather fearful. However, he did not think that he was not a match for the evil prince. After all, exploring basic relic sites did not only require hard power. Many times, soft power was the deciding factor, including strategy, reasoning ability, and so on. Hence, he was jealous of Kong Xinmu. Although he did not say it explicitly, everyone knew what Gu Litian was thinking. During this period of seclusion, he had improved quite a bit. His strength at the 4th stage of the martial emperor tier had increased by another level. This also allowed him to become one of the 16 people who had defended the arena in the end. It was obvious that he had extraordinary combat ability. Of course, Gu Litian was not considered a member of Emperor Xi's mystical dragon in the 5 Extremes' mysterious Ice Holy Land. Emperor Xi's mystical dragon had only hinted to him out of concern for the younger generation. However, Gu Litian had actually ignored Emperor Xi's mystical dragon. This was a little too arrogant. Regardless of whether he was a member of Emperor Xi's mystical dragon, Emperor Xi's mystical dragon was a senior in the 5 Extremes' mysterious Ice Holy Land. Gu Litian's actions were indeed a little arrogant. It was no wonder that Emperor Xi didn't like him. Chapter 48-32. The top 16 of the arena battles had already left the arena temporarily. In this elimination battle, the supreme experts of each of the 10 major races would draw lots to decide the order of the duel. Moreover, there was no rule that people of the same race could not meet each other. Whoever drew lots would fight, and the top 10 would receive the rewards that had been arranged in advance. Emperor Xi and the Divine Dragon went out to interact with the supreme experts of the other races and draw lots. As for Kong Xinmu and the other 4, they were resting in the spectator stands. Kong Xinmu, Xiao Bai, Ran Ran, Xiao Yuhua, and Liang Xiao were gathered together. During this period, they did not communicate with the others because they were injured and exhausted. So now Kong Xinmu was helping to heal and recover the 4 of them. Kong Xinmu's ability was still very strong. This was all thanks to his devouring power. During this period, he found that Gu Litian was with the dragon warriors of his hidden Gu family. From time to time, Gu Litian would look at him with a provocative look in his eyes. What an idiot! Kong Xinmu thought to himself. This guy went into seclusion to heal himself, and he entered the primary relic and obtained a heaven and earth saint item. What could he do? How could they blame it on him? Jealous of him? That was simply unreasonable. Since they were going to participate in the elimination battle together, if they met each other, there was no need to show mercy. Now, the only thing that Kong Xinmu was more concerned about was the demon god race. Unfortunately, the spectator stands of the demon god race were too far away. Even Kong Xinmu could not see the situation over there. He did not know who the inheritor of the 16-winged sky demon god bloodline was. It did not look like Xueqi, but the aura was indeed somewhat similar. As for the situation of the demon god race, Kong Xinmu actually knew very little. So he did not make any guesses. He would wait until they met in the arena battles. During this 2-hour break, the other races were all thinking about how to deal with the dragon gods. After all, there were too many people from the dragon god clan who had won in the end. There were 6 of them in total, and none of them looked weak. Of course, among these 16 people, the The two strongest were generally acknowledged to be Kong Shinmu and the demon god race. They were the last ones to enter the arena, the royal descendant of the 16-winged heavenly demon god. The royal family of the demon god race was still relatively orthodox, unlike the so-called princes like the demon snake prince. The demon god tribe had at least 100 princes like the demon snake prince. There were several different royal families in the demon god tribe. But in the demon god race, there was only one royal family, and that was the inheritance of the 16-winged heavenly demon god. Only the royal family could obtain the inheritance of the 16-winged Xueqi and celestial. This inheritance was optional. Whether it was compatibility or other aspects, the inheritance of the 16-winged Xueqi and celestial far surpassed the ancient fiend celestial bloodline of the ordinary fiend celestial race. In any case, the inheritance of the 16-winged Xueqi and celestial had appeared. It was clear that the demon god race still valued this arena battle. Soon, the drawing of lots for the supreme-level experts ended. Emperor Shi quickly rushed back and handed the battle list to Kong Shinmu and the other four. He also threw a copy to Gu Litian, who was in the direction of the hidden Gu family. This time's drawing is a little unlucky. There are 6 of us, and 4 of us are matched against each other. Emperor Shi said straightforwardly. Damn, it can't be, right? Did the other races do something to them? Liang Xiao immediately cursed. Impossible. The supreme-level experts are supervising together. No one can fake it, Emperor Shi said lightly. That's not possible. Emperor Shi, look at the 6 of us from the dragon god race. Wouldn't the other races join forces to deal with us? I think it's possible that they joined forces to tamper with the results. Liang Xiao said angrily. You think too much. Emperor Shi didn't say much. He just pouted at Kong Shinmu and gestured for them to look at the battle list. Jiang Shenwu and the other 4 lowered their heads to take a look. As expected, there were 8 battles in the elimination round. 2 of them were between the dragon god race and the dragon god race. The 4 people who were matched against each other were Kong Shinmu against Ran Ran, and Gu Litian against Xiao Yuhua. As for the others, the successor of the 16-winged heavenly demon god that Kong Shinmu was concerned about was matched against a cultivator from the ancient Phoenix clan. In other words, Ran Ran and I will be matched against each other in the first battle. Then, Xiao Yuhua will be matched against Gu Litian. Kong Shinmu felt a headache coming on. This battle list was really targeted at them. No matter who won or lost, it would be a big loss for him or Ran Ran. And if Xiao Yuhua was matched against Gu Litian, she might not win. Kong Shinmu had also observed Gu Litian's battle. This guy's thunder talent was extremely strong, and like Xiao Yuhua, he walked the path of toughness. When both sides met, it was really hard to say who would win and who would lose. Don't worry. I will use my strongest battle strength. Xiao Yuhua felt a headache coming on when she realized that her opponent was Gu Litian. They were both from the dragon god race. However, since Gu Litian disliked Kong Shinmu and didn't even care about Emperor Shi and the Divine Dragon, Xiao Yuhua was confident that she could defeat Gu Litian. She must not lose to Gu Litian. Otherwise it would be terrible. Fortunately, Xiao Yuhua didn't use her full strength in the arena battle just now. Hence, she still had some special methods and trump cards to deal with Gu Litian. The fact that Xiao Yuhua was able to hold back in the arena battle meant that her current strength was rather terrifying. At the very least, she wouldn't be afraid when facing the other level 4 martial emperors from the other 9 races. With this level of battle strength, even if Xiao Yuhua and the others were to enter a basic relic, they would be able to be on the same level as Luo Xiao and Yu Jingxian. They would be able to stand alone in the environment of a basic relic. In the arena, they had consecutively defeated several opponents of the same level as Luo Xiao and Yu Jingxian. Regardless of whether it was their battle strength or battle experience, they had already surpassed ordinary level 4 martial emperors. When the results of the drawing of lots came out, 2 hours passed quickly. In the sky above the 16 arenas in the center, an even larger arena appeared. It was used for this elimination round. The first battle was arranged between Kong Shinmu and Ran Ran. They were on the same side. According to ordinary people, Ran Ran definitely wasn't a match for Kong Shinmu. Of course, no one thought that Ran Ran would forfeit. After all, this arena battle was related to many things. The cultivation resources would be greatly affected. However, no one expected Ran Ran to forfeit. If we want to spar, we can do so at any time. Hence, it's better for me to forfeit this time. I don't want to expose your true battle strength. Ran squinted her eyes as she spoke. You're really confident, Sister Ran. Kong Shinmu might not even need to use his true battle strength to deal with you. Liang Xiao said as he courted death. Why don't we spar after this? Chapter 48-33. In any case, what Ran said was not wrong. Kong Shinmu was unsure of Ran's actual combat strength and whether she could expose some of her true combat strength. In short, she probably could not match up to him, so there was no need for this battle. It was better to just avoid it. When Ran directly admitted defeat, the other race's cultivators were not particularly surprised by this result. Soon, the next elimination round began. This battle was between the demon god race genius with the inheritance of the 16-winged heavenly demon god and a powerhouse of the ancient Phoenix clan. Both of them were women. Until now, Kong Shinmu had not seen what the demon god race genius with the inheritance of the 16-winged heavenly demon god looked like. When she transformed into a demon god, she looked very slender. It was obvious that she was a woman, but he did not know what she looked like. This demon god race genius went up to fight with a powerhouse of the ancient Phoenix clan. Originally, Kong Shinmu wanted to take this opportunity to see what kind of strength this demon god race genius had. However, he did not expect that the ancient Phoenix clan genius would be defeated in one move when facing this demon god race genius. It was not an exaggeration to say that those who could stand on this arena were all outstanding 4th-level martial emperors. Their combat strength far exceeded that of ordinary 4th-level martial emperors. Even the powerhouses of the Dragon Emperor nation of the Dragon Emperor of the Martial Dragon mainland could not stand on the arena to the end. In fact, there were not many opportunities for them to stand on the arena. It could be seen that this batch of people who could stand on the final arena were all very strong existences. However, the ancient Phoenix clan genius was actually defeated in one move by the 16-winged heavenly demon god. Everyone paid attention to that move and realized that it was the move that the 16-winged heavenly demon god had used not long ago to kill 2 opponents in one move and stay on the arena to the very end. It was also the attack that she launched at Kong Shinmu the moment she appeared. Unfortunately, Kong Shinmu directly avoided her attack and retreated out of the arena. However, based on the power Kong Shinmu felt at that time, the 16-winged sky demon god couldn't defeat Kong Shinmu with just this move. In other words, the 16-winged sky demon god hadn't used its true strength yet. This made Kong Shinmu a little wary. This 16-winged heavenly fiend celestial was very strong, and he still couldn't confirm her identity. Could she really be Xueqi? However, if it was Xueqi, he wouldn't have attacked Kong Shinmu without any reason. It seemed that this guy wanted to provoke Kong Shinmu at the last moment. The 16-winged heavenly fiend celestial's next match will be against Gu Litian and Xiao Yuhua. The victor will then participate in the final match. Whether it's Gu Litian or Xiao Yuhua, neither of them are a match for her. However, whoever wins between Gu Litian and Xiao Yuhua will enter the quarterfinals. Only the top 10 will receive more rewards. After that, there won't be any rewards. Therefore, Xiao Yuhua has to defeat Gu Litian. Otherwise, between Xiao Yuhua and Ran, I'm afraid one of them won't be able to enter the top 10. Kong Shinmu thought to himself. After the 16-winged heavenly fiend celestial won, the next match was between the other races. After 2 matches, it was Gu Litian and Xiao Yuhua's turn. The appearance of these 2 dragon martialists caused the atmosphere to become intense again. Many people in the spectator stands were guessing who would emerge victorious. The hidden clans naturally supported Gu Litian. After all, although Gu Litian was only from the Gu family, he was the representative of all the hidden families. Only Gu Litian had managed to make it out of the hidden families in the Martial Dragon continent. In fact, there were others who were also very strong, but unfortunately, none of them were able to stand until the end. Gu Litian and Xiao Yuhua entered the arena. After the start of the match was announced, the 2 of them transformed into dragons and started beating each other in the arena. Everyone was paying attention to this match. Regardless of whether it was Gu Litian's lightning innate talent or Xiao Yuhua's fire innate talent, they were both extremely terrifying and violent powers. Their attacks were extremely powerful. However, it seemed like Gu Litian's various techniques were more comprehensive. He had participated in the exploration of the primary remnants 3 times, so he definitely wasn't lacking in cultivation resources. Therefore, he had many techniques. He also possessed a heaven-grade divine dragon weapon and cultivated a high-grade divine dragon martial technique. The cultivation level of the high-grade divine dragon martial technique was even higher than Xiao Yuhua's. The two of them exchanged blows and unleashed their respective dragon martial techniques crazily in the arena. As they clashed, the power of lightning gradually suppressed the power of fire. It seems like Gu Litian is going to win. It seems like his power of lightning has been unleashed to the limit. The power of fire is still a little weak. Gu Litian is indeed someone who has participated in the exploration of the primary remnants 3 times. It's too easy for him to raise his cultivation level when he doesn't lack cultivation resources. Gu Litian had 2 heaven-grade divine dragon weapons. One was for defense, while the other was for offense. When he used both at the same time, Xiao Yuhua wouldn't be able to do anything to him. However, just as everyone was guessing that Gu Litian was going to win, Xiao Yuhua suddenly vanished from the arena. Her figure seemed to vanish in a sea of flames, and Gu Litian couldn't find the body of the Inferno Divine Dragon. What's going on? It's the Black Concealing Dragon Stone. She used the Black Concealing Dragon Stone. Kong Shinmu squinted his eyes and figured out what technique Xiao Yuhua had used. The Black Concealing Dragon Stone was still with Xiao Yuhua. At this moment, Xiao Yuhua immediately used the Black Concealing Dragon Stone to conceal herself in the arena. At this moment, Gu Litian's face darkened. He could no longer sense the existence of the Laughing Language Flower. This was undoubtedly bad news. He had a rather strong sense of perception, but he might not be able to sense something that was hidden by the dragon weapon. He could only say that he would be able to react as soon as Xiao Yuhua launched an attack. However, it might be too late by then. Hence, Gu Litian became extremely cautious as he carefully observed his surroundings. Just as everyone thought that he was going to continue waiting, the divine thunder dragon that he had transformed into suddenly unleashed a ferocious power of lightning. The ferocious power of lightning continued to erupt in all directions. Gu Litian was planning to use an attack with a larger area of effect to envelop the entire space around him. The terrifying power of lightning filled the entire arena. This was not a bad idea. After all, this was an arena battle, and the opponent couldn't leave the area of the arena. If they did, they would be disqualified. This was the best idea that Gu Litian could come up with. Chapter 48-34. Xiao Yuhua, this is not bad. Kong Shinmu narrowed his eyes and looked at the arena. Even he hadn't expected Xiao Yuhua to be able to control the Black Concealing Dragon Stone to such an extent. The Concealing Black Dragon Stone had been following Xiao Yuhua recently, and Xiao Yuhua had clearly studied it thoroughly. It was actually able to create an independent space for her to hide in. Even though Gu Litian was constantly unleashing his power to bombard the entire arena, he was unable to harm Xiao Yuhua. This made Kong Shinmu sigh. The Black Concealing Dragon Stone was originally a dragon weapon that he had exchanged for, but Xiao Yuhua had developed such an ability. This ability was similar to his alternate spacetime tablet. Of course, it was still slightly weaker. After all, when the alternate spacetime tablet was used with his wind shadow flowing sunset flash, he could hide in the alternate space for a long time. But on the Laughing Language Flower's side, the alternate dimension created by the hidden Black Dragon Stone should disappear very soon. As expected, after Gu Litian unleashed 3 attacks, Xiao Yuhua's figure appeared in the arena. However, at this time, Gu Litian's power had already been depleted by at least half. Xiao Yuhua, on the other hand, unleashed boundless fire power. Phoenix Dance incinerates the 9 heavens, and other dragon martial techniques were constantly unleashed. At this time, Gu Litian just happened to unleash 1 attack. Before he could react, the lightning power around him was completely destroyed by Xiao Yuhua's firepower. What? Gu Litian was just wondering why Xiao Yuhua had suddenly disappeared. He had seen some experts from the Void human tribe who had a strong understanding of the power of Void and could create an alternate space to hide in temporarily. However, he had never seen a dragon martial artist who could do this. Gu Litian assumed that Xiao Yuhua was hiding in the alternate space. He guessed that she wouldn't be able to hide for too long, so he didn't stop his attacks, wave after wave. Unfortunately, Gu Litian hadn't expected Xiao Yuhua to appear in the gap between his attacks and attack him. Therefore, Gu Litian could only burst forth with his most urgent power. The defensive heaven-grade Saint spiritual dragon weapon immediately burst forth with its most terrifying power. It gathered the power of lightning and blocked the Laughing Flower's attack. The boundless lightning energy gathered together to form a barrier, completely blocking the Laughing Language Flower's flame energy. It was a pity that the Laughing Language Flower's power came in waves. The Phoenix Dance incineration of the 9 heavens kept bursting forth, releasing fire energy that continuously weakened Gu Litian's lightning defense. The Thunder Divine Dragon that Gu Litian had transformed into was completely enveloped by the power of thunder. The boundless power of thunder was getting closer to the Laughing Flower. While he was defending, he was actually able to burst forth with power to counterattack, which surprised Xiao Yuhua. However, the Laughing Flower's superior grade Holy Spirit Dragon martial technique suddenly burst forth at this moment. Boundless flames brewed into a terrifying aura. After that, they surged out from beneath Gu Litian's divine dragon body. A pillar of fire surged into the sky like a volcano eruption, enveloping Gu Litian within it. High-grade divine spirit dragon martial technique, 30,000 Zhong fire dragon pillar. This was a high-grade divine spirit dragon martial technique. Furthermore, the Laughing Flower technique had been cultivated for a very long time. At this moment, it could already burst forth with an 800 Zhong tall fire dragon pillar. Its momentum had reached a terrifying level. Most importantly, the defensive power of Gu Litian's lightning barrier had already been weakened to the extreme after being attacked by the Phoenix Dance incineration of the 9 heavens several times. At this moment, the eruption of the towering fire dragon pillar had actually broken through his lightning barrier. Gu Litian was very strong. However, he was basically suppressed by the Laughing Flower's black concealing dragonstone's alternate space twice. Now, he didn't have much power left to deal with the Laughing Flower. Most importantly, Gu Litian had actually thought of counterattacking the Laughing Flower while defending. This was a little too careless. He didn't expect his defense barrier to be instantly shattered. At this moment, he didn't have time to retract his power and condense it into a new defense barrier. The power of thunder around him couldn't stop the impact of the Laughing Flower's towering fire dragon pillar. The terrifying force sent him flying out of the arena. Gu Litian had been defeated. Moreover, under the impact of the towering fire dragon pillar, Gu Litian didn't have much strength to defend himself. His divine dragon body wasn't very strong either. Hence, he was severely injured. If the Laughing Flower hadn't stopped in the end, he might have been beaten to death. A dragon martial artist who hadn't cultivated a body-tempering dragon martial technique wouldn't be able to withstand a stronger attack with their body. Gu Litian was also a portrayal of the majority of the dragon martial artists. Although many dragon martial artists had very strong defensive abilities and their defensive dragon martial skills were very powerful, once their defense was broken through, only death awaited them. In the end, the Laughing Flower had held back and didn't kill Gu Litian. However, Gu Litian had also been severely injured and fainted. The Laughing Flower technique had won. This allowed Kong Shinmu and the rest to heave a sigh of relief. In the first round, 16 people fought in pairs. The Laughing Flower technique won, Ran forfeited, and Kong Shinmu won. Finally, Xiao Bai successfully defeated a Sea God clan martial artist and advanced to the top 8. In the top 8, there were Xiao Bai, the Laughing Flower technique, Kong Shinmu, and Liang Xiao. 4 dragon martial artists had entered the top 8. It could be said that the Dragon God clan had gained a lot in this arena battle. Following that, Kong Shinmu fought against the Laughing Flower technique, Liang Xiao fought against the 16-winged heavenly demon god, and finally, Xiao Bai fought against a genius martial artist from the ancient Phoenix clan. This genius martial artist from the ancient Phoenix clan was also very strong. Xiao Bai might not be her match. Moreover, Kong Shinmu felt that Liang Xiao shouldn't be a match for the 16-winged heavenly demon god. This made Kong Shinmu feel a little uncomfortable. It seemed that 3 dragon martial artists would lose in the top 8. I'll just forfeit. In any case, I've already entered the top 8. Laughing Flower technique chose to forfeit. She didn't want to fight against Kong Shinmu. After all, she had just fought with Gu Litian and consumed a lot of energy. In addition, she knew that she wasn't a match for Kong Shinmu. Thus, there was no need for her to continue fighting. After Laughing Flower forfeited, it was Liang Zhao's turn to face the 16-winged heavenly demon god. The battle began. Liang Xiao directly exploded the power of his bloodline. However, even if he exploded with all his potential and strength, causing his dragon blood to boil, he still couldn't break through the defense of the 16-winged heavenly demon god's demonic martial skill. On the other hand, the 16-winged heavenly demon god only needed to make a move before a black beam of light blasted Liang Xiao out of the arena. Chapter 48-35. The 16-winged heavenly fiend Celestial had defeated Liang Xiao with one move. Then, she glanced at Kong Shinmu, who was in the spectator stands. She was obviously very interested in Kong Shinmu. This made Kong Shinmu narrow his eyes. I wonder who this fellow is, but he definitely doesn't look like Xueqi. No matter what, I must be careful if I encounter this person. Kong Shinmu felt threatened by the 16-winged heavenly fiend Celestial. It was obvious that the 16-winged heavenly fiend Celestial had the battle prowess to contend with Kong Shinmu. The inherited power of the fiend Celestial race's bloodline in her body was extremely powerful. She seemed to have completely unleashed the power of the 16-winged heavenly fiend Celestial's bloodline. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to blast Liang Xiao out of the arena with a casual demonic martial technique. This was just like Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu had also unleashed the power of his bloodline to the extreme. Regardless of whether it was the Nirvana Tribulation Realm or the Reincarnation Tribulation Realm, they were all condensed to the extreme. This 16-winged heavenly fiend Celestial is at the peak of the 9th tier of the Reincarnation Tribulation Realm. She must have condensed the power of Samsara every time she broke through and defeated 2 reincarnation behemoths. This is why she is so strong now. With the same level of inherited blood essence, her battle prowess naturally surpasses everyone else. Even I have to be careful now. There were very few cultivators who could condense all of the Reincarnation Tribulation Realm. It was already pretty good if there was 1 in 10,000. It must be known that even a genius like Gu Xinyue, who had sufficient cultivation resources, had not condensed all of her samsara power. This was extremely difficult. Only people like Kong Shinmu would not feel too much pressure. However, even people like Xiao Bai and Ran Ran might not be able to condense and defeat 2 reincarnation behemoths every time. This 16-winged heavenly fiend Celestial was definitely a proud son of heaven. This also proved that the opponent was definitely not Xueqi. Xueqi could not have grown so quickly. She was only at the Demon King realm before, which was too far away from the Demon Emperor realm. The top 4 had been decided. Kong Shinmu won. The 16-winged heavenly demon god race genius girl won. There was also a Fey god powerhouse that won. Finally, it was Xiao Bai against the ancient Phoenix clan powerhouse. The battle between Xiao Bai and the powerhouses of the ancient Phoenix clan had undoubtedly attracted the attention of most of the surrounding people. Because once Xiao Bai won, it meant that 2 members of the Dragon God clan would enter the top 4. Putting aside the rewards, the impact would be even greater. Everyone knew what this arena battle meant. As long as they entered the top 10, it meant that these 4th-level Emperor stage experts would have the ability to take charge of a primary ruin. Once they entered the top 4, it could be said that they would have decisive power in a primary ruin. In the past, Xiao Bai wasn't considered too strong in the primary ruins. But now, Xiao Bai had grown to an even more terrifying level. Although the grade of the Divine Dragon's inheritance blood essence did not increase, there were improvements in other aspects. The most important was the high-grade Divine Spirit Dragon martial technique she cultivated. Ice Dragon suppressing mountains and rivers. No one knew what level she had cultivated this move to. Xiao Yuhua's 100,000-foot flaming dragon pillar had been cultivated to 8,000 feet, and Kong Shinmu's 9-stage extreme dragon explosion had been cultivated to the 8th stage. As for Xiao Bai, as someone who had gone to the Dragon God Clan Great World with Kong Shinmu, she had obtained enough cultivation resources. She was already a disciple of the 5 Extremes Dark Ice Holy Land. Thus, she had spent more cultivation resources than Xiao Yuhua. Her current ice dragon suppressing mountains and rivers could already condense 1,400 ice dragon pagodas. In the previous arena battles, she could directly condense 100 to 200 ice dragon pagodas, and that was enough to suppress all her opponents. But facing this ancient Phoenix clan powerhouse, she actually condensed thousands of ice dragon pagodas at once. Countless ice dragon pagodas circled around the arena and then suppressed the ancient Phoenix clan's flaming phoenix. A terrifying icy aura enveloped the entire arena. The ancient Phoenix clan powerhouse's entire body erupted with flames. She actually intended to fight Xiaobai head-on. Numerous rings of flames appeared all over her body. These were the top-rate combat weapons of the ancient Phoenix clan, and they emanated the most terrifying and tyrannical energy of flames. Immediately after, she released a top-rate martial technique of the ancient Phoenix clan. Flames shot into the sky and condensed into the form of a flaming phoenix that collided with the 1,000 ice dragon pagodas. The two different energies of ice and fire collided, and then they emanated waves of energy that rumbled towards the surroundings. Ice dragon pagodas, suppress. Such an attack seemed to have reached a tie, but Xiaobai condensed even more ice dragon pagodas in the next moment, and a total of 1,400 ice dragon pagodas crashed down and suppressed the ancient Phoenix clan powerhouse. This time, the ancient Phoenix clan powerhouse wasn't able to resist it. This was Xiaobai's full strength. The strength of 1,400 ice dragon pagodas was completely impossible to resist. They crashed down and heavily suppressed the ancient Phoenix clan's flaming Phoenix clan powerhouse on the arena, and then the icy aura condensed and directly froze the flaming Phoenix clan powerhouse into an ice sculpture. Admit defeat. At this time, the supreme powerhouse of the ancient Phoenix clan said faintly, and a mighty force directly shattered the ice sculpture and took the ancient Phoenix clan powerhouse out of the arena. Although the ancient Phoenix clan powerhouse had fallen into a coma, there wouldn't be any danger to her life if she was treated in time. However, she would definitely be injured. Of course, if the supreme powerhouse had acted a little slower and allowed the ancient Phoenix clan powerhouse to continue being frozen by Xiaobai, even if it was only for a short period of time, it was possible that the ancient Phoenix clan powerhouse's life force would be completely drained. If they had fought while exploring the elementary ruins, the ancient Phoenix clan powerhouse would probably have died at this moment. This was the power of a ruling level. Although there was still a lot of room for Xiaobai to improve, the same was true for her opponent. At this age, there were already very few cultivators who could reach the level of the ancient Phoenix clan powerhouse. It was almost impossible to become stronger and reach the level of the 16-winged heavenly fiend god and Kong Shin Mu. In this battle, Xiaobai won. The list of the top 4 was out, and the Dragon Martial Artist Camp occupied 2 spots. This result was simply unbelievable to the surrounding people. The Dragon Martial Continent could actually cultivate so many powerful existences? There were 6 in the top 16, 4 in the top 8, and 2 in the top 4. Wasn't this too terrifying? In comparison, the geniuses of the other races seemed very weak. But in fact, whether it was the level of the Demon Snake Prince or the ancient Phoenix clan powerhouse, their combat strength was very strong. At the very least, they had reached the level of Princess Azure Lotus, Bai Feng, and Mighty Heaven that Kong Shin Mu had seen before, and were even a little stronger than these people. Unfortunately, these were the majority of the top 10 races' 4th-level martial emperor powerhouses. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.